Well done.
It's here for you.
So it is.
I hope to do that.
Good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get this meeting started in one moment.
Sorry, I need your sweater.
Madam Clerk, we'll call the roll.
Magistrate Craycraft,
Present.
Hasley,
Here.
Constantopoulos,
Present.
Blanton,
Here.
Davis,
Present.
and Miller.
Okay. I'd like to welcome Pastor Marvin King from the First Baptist Church in North Highland. He will lead us in the invocation, and please remain standing for the pledge.
Let us pray. Eternal wise God, our Father, we thank you on this morning, God, for the opportunity, God, to carry out business that helps our community thrive. Dear Lord, we ask that you would just bless, God, this fiscal court meeting, oh God. Bless, God, each one of our magistrates and elected officials, every department that is represented. God, I pray that every resource that will be talked about today will be used to allow this community to represent the business of what you are about. Father, we ask that you would just give us wisdom. God, give us unity. Give us the peace to be able to reason together, to be able to discuss ideas and perspectives in a way that allows everyone the opportunity to experience the greater good. So God, right now, we just thank you for this opportunity. We ask that you would bless everything that is said and done here today. It is in your name we pray and give you thanks. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item will be the approval of the minutes for June the 27th, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion, Magistrate Blanton. Is there
Second.
Second, Magistrate Constantopoulos. Any discussion?
Yeah, on the second page, Judge, on the paragraph, stated motion made by Magistrate Davis, second by Magistrate Miller. I think that should read to exercise the option to purchase.
Where are we?
Second page, first full paragraph. Motion made,
Okay.
Magistrate Miller to exercise the option to purchase. And then I'd say, instead of the lease, I'd say in the lease, because the option is in the lease
Okay, to exercise the option
to purchase.
to purchase.
In the lease instead of the lease. Yeah, it's 888,000.
It should be not 9.
Yeah, instead of 889, it should be 888. I think that's all I had, Judge.
Okay. Any further discussion? So we'll approve the minutes as noted.
We need to vote.
Need to vote.
Need to vote.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item will be number 6, the approval of the budget transfers.
Motion to approve.
Motion, Magistrate Constantopoulos, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Magistrate Davis, any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 7 will be the approval of the cash transfers.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Magistrate Constantopoulos, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Magistrate Blanton, any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item will be number 8, the approval of the bills list.
Is that both of them?
Oh, I'm
Do it
sorry.
there.
Let me back up that. Actually, back on the cash transfers, there's 2 of them, actually. Second, I didn't see it on the second page, there's another one
That was one for the jail.
for the jail.
Motion approved. Second.
Motion Magistrate Constable, second Magistrate Davis. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is number 8, approval of the bills list.
Motion approved.
Motion by Magistrate Constantopoulos, is there a second?
Second.
Second Magistrate Craycraft. Any discussion?
Just one comment on the second page, second one from the bottom, it says planning and zoning. If that's for floodplain coordinator and others, that is really not a planning and zoning account, that is a City of Winchester account. So at some point in time, when we do a budget transfer, we might want to think about creating an account for the City of Winchester, because that is separate and apart from the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's 2 different entities entirely.
Magistrate Bland, what page are you on?
Page number 2, second one from the bottom. Just a note, I mean, not that
I see, yeah. Yeah.
It may be confusing to someone
Right.
at some point if you don't know the difference, but that has nothing to do with,
Well, that's gonna eat up everything in that line item, isn't it?
if there's $30,000, I think the planning commission requested 12 or 14 this year. I didn't see the paperwork, that's what I was told. So, but again, we never see what any of the requests are. We haven't for the last 3 years, so I don't know what they requested, but I asked Jeffries about, well, that's okay.
I
It's
mean,
ju-
well, I'm fine with separating it out. That doesn't bother me.
But we don't have a line item for City of Winchester in there, I don't think, in the budget.
We just need to do a transfer from that line, from that appropriations and create that line item.
Yeah.
So what's the reason we're requesting for 3 years and not getting anything?
Well, when we do the budget, we never see any of the requests when we do the budget. All we see is what the judge proposes. I mean, you would think that we could see the request, so we would have some input as to what that line item is, but we haven't seen them for maybe 4 years. We just get the final numbers. So that's why I asked Jeffries what they requested. And I think he told me 12,000, what the planning commission requested. And if what the rest of the city needs for these other agreements is, I don't know what those are either. But again, that's just, I've gotten used to it. Maybe it's just me.
Well noted.
Any other comments?
Yes, Judge, a couple of questions on page 4, just really for clarification. $3,700 and $3,740 bill to Fiscal Software Corporation. I guess that, evidently that's for software. I guess is that for Mary B. or for,
Yes.
okay. I think we discussed that, I know, a couple months ago, hadn't we? Or I think it had come up at some point, and we talked about some new software for her.
Yeah, I
It
think-
was approved.
Yeah, we-
That's right. I just wanted to clarify. I thought that was hers.
Software that you all approved
Yes.
last year that she's using.
Gotcha, great, thank you. And then, below that, maybe I've seen this before, but Friends, it says Friends Office. There's about 5 office supply bills we're paying. What does Friends Office represent?
Friend's office used to be Hearst Office.
Oh, I see.
It used to be-
That's a company.
That's now, they've
That's a
now
company.
changed their name.
Yes, it's
Okay,
now Friend's
I
Office.
see, thank you.
Clarify in the future.
Yeah. Well, it's the name of their company, it's the
that's-
payee,
that's
so,
the new one?
yeah, that's the
Gotcha.
name of that's the payee, so, okay, that's all I had, Judge.
Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a supplemental bills list.
Motion approved.
Motion Magistrate Constantopoulos.
Second.
Second Magistrate Miller. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And then we have
Pre-authorization.
3 pre-authorized bills lists for June the 26th, June the 27th, and July the 1st.
Motion to approve.
We don't need
We
those.
don't need
Oh, I'm
approval.
sorry.
Those are already approved.
Yeah. Next item on the agenda will be public comments. And the first speaker is Barker.
And Brooks. Parker.
No. Do we have a microphone? Here you go, sweetheart. Yeah, it was.
Think everybody can hear me from here.
Yeah, honey, we do, with the microphones for the people on, ma'am,
I
ma'am.
wanted to thank the judge and members of the fiscal court for allowing me to speak today. And my name is Ann Brooks Barker, and my husband and I live on the Mount Sterling Road, 5450 Mount Sterling Road. And I'm here today to reiterate some of the concerns that the neighbors have and what is forthcoming before you all about the rezone change of the 23.7 acres of land that is directly across from Lycans Park. You may question why we didn't propose this to planning and zoning, but nobody knew anything about it, nobody. Because unfortunately, when the sign went up, that zoning change, it was during the monsoon season. And there was a small paper sign, only one, and the rain, we saw the sign pass by a number of times, but it's not unusual to see signs there for the Little League. And this was about the time for Little League sign up. But the sign was completely rolled up. You couldn't read anything on it. It wasn't until a neighbor, Mr. Kidd, that's with us today, he asked me, and I said, I don't know. He said, well, I'm just gonna drive in it. That's the only way you can see the sign. Drive in, unroll it. So the time we did that, or he did it, the time had lapsed. Court had already approved it. The commission had already approved it. And so then it has to go to you all since this is in the county. And I wanted to address the issues. Mrs. Bush made the motion at the commission's planning zoning, and she said that the properties, she found no reason, practical reason, to deny it because of the fact that first, there is no practical thing for single-family residents. And that isn't true because when you come on the Mount Sterling Road, the very first house on your right, coming into Winchester, that's just over the interstate bridge, is a single-family resident. It has been owned by 2 ladies for some time, and it is now owned by the Kentucky Housing Authority. And so the area has single-family dwellings. Just before you get to the interstate, it's all dwellings. Mrs. Corpus here today, she owns both sides of the Mount Sterling Road prior to getting to the interstate. The second thing that Mrs. Bush mentioned was there is no water or sewer. That's only partially correct. We have water. East Clark County Water furnishes water on the Mount Sterling Road. And in fact, there's a fire hydrant that is near one of these pieces of property that they're asking for the zone change for. And the second issue that she brought up was that there's really no problem with traffic. That is the big. If you've ever traveled out the Mount Sterling Road to Lycans Park, and this is going to be directly across, there's 3 tracts of land. It's directly across from Lycans Park. you first have a sharp curve. And part of that curve, several years back, they made a walking path. When you leave Veterans Parkway and you're going east on the Mount Sterling Road, there's sidewalks, but that quits a couple of tenths from the Veterans Parkway. So there's nowhere to walk. So they took the low gravel part that you normally would call an apron, get all on it, the piece of all of that, and a piece of the Mount Sterling Road. They marked that and they grooved it. Now people walk, and you actually see, if any of you went to the 4th of July, some people got from town out there because they can walk and go in on the corner of Lycans Park, and they don't pay a fee per car to park. So, and in the summertime, we see, after a big rain, we see young boys walking where the fishing goes to go down there and fish in the creek. So they do use that for walking, and you're walking on 60. And believe me, I live on the same farm I was reared on, and we have 4 generations on that farm. And I can tell you, there's 5 people that drive, we are on the Mount Sterling Road numerous times a day. So we see the traffic that is presented with this. We have the farmers, we still have a few farms working, and you have enough problem just with a lowboy with 16 rolls of hay on it to be careful with. Now, the consignment auction people just had an auction on June the 11th at the corner of Veterans Parkway and Maple Street. And I can tell you, there was lowboys bringing in combines that, I think there's only a couple of farmers in this county that have them that big. You see them in the west. And bulldozers, anything from a golf cart all the way up to massive bulldozers and backhoe diggers. And we saw them ourselves, my husband and I, turning in to get in there. You're turning in off of a 4-lane road onto that early drive, which is really 3 lanes at the front because they've got a turn on. The traffic backs up now during school time. It backs up down the Mount Sterling Road because they do not have a turn lane right there that people needing to go to Maple or on into town or to Lexington, they have to wait in line for the people that want to go straight ahead. So during school time, traffic backs up almost to that curve. School buses also. Now you take in consideration all of the development down the Waits Mill Pike, Pretty Run Road, and down to White and Turley Road, and also Dan Evans. Now the people on Waits Mill, Dan Evans, and White and Turley all use the Mount Sterling Road. They're not gonna drive all the way to Pretty Run and come in on the Paris Pike. So if you've ever been down Waits Mill Pike, we see 5 and 6 cars turning every time I come to town. So we've got traffic from that. Plus, now we are 5 miles, our farm, where we live, 5 miles and 4/10 from the city limits. And there are 66 houses from our house for 5 miles and 4/10, which is city limits. So, and we all average. When you look at a house and they have 2 or 3 cars, you know one person or the other is gonna be moving. So yes, traffic is a major problem. I would have hoped that years ago that this land would have been purchased by either Tourism Commission, Planning, Parks and Recreation, or something to expand Lycans Park, because it is used extensively. It's the only park in the county, and it's the only one that has a fixed permanent stage for any type of a performance. They just finished having the 4th of July there. And both sides of the road, including this property that they want to rezone, they were using to park the cars. So it's used for the benefit of all the children and the citizens, but not only the Winchester, but the county as well. And it's, I guess the Taylor family already owns a piece that's adjoining the first house that I mentioned to you, that's a residential house. Cause that piece is 1.51 acres, and it's under the name of Taylor Auto Sales. And so it's the next 3 tracks. And the other thing is the planning, the Winchester Planning and Zoning did not ask for a plan. They waived, let me read here to be for sure what she said. They waived the development plan for the property. So if we change it from agricultural to commercial, you're kind of opening up the door for anything. What do we know what they're gonna put there, because no plan was submitted, they waived that. So I appreciate you all hearing mine, and thank you so much for your time, and I would respectfully request that you all deny this zone change.
Thank you.
The next person to speak is Mac Kidd.
Ann pretty much covered everything I was going to say, so it would just be a repeat of her concerns and notes that she's taken. I'm the gentleman that's a loose term, I'm the fellow that saw the sign in the piece of property and pointed out to Ann, and then she did all the legwork. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Rogers.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Mike Rogers. I'm a lifelong resident of Winchester, Clark County. I've been a county resident since 1996, and I've always considered myself someone that looks out for others, and I've always advocated for those who have no voice, who don't know how to address situations, and I've sort of taken it upon myself in several different projects here in Winchester to try to get involved, to try to make the Clark County even better. I love my county, I love my city. We aren't perfect, and I appreciate all of your all's service, and I look around all these important people. I hope there's not a fire today. I appreciate you guys coming. I feel safe in here, but I really do appreciate everybody that serves our government in any capacity, volunteer, if you get paid, whatever. I really, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate you. But I attended my first city commission meeting a week or so ago, and I'm embarrassed that was my first meeting. And well, so today I embarrassed myself again with my first fiscal court meeting. But I'm here to advocate for the splash pad, and I've talked to Kitty Strode, and I was at the meeting with Joe Ellen and the rest of city commissioners, and it's sort of like we've been dragging our feet a little bit, and myself and another friend of mine, we've been reaching out to different people and different authorities trying to see where we are. And it's just sort of been like really a lack of communication to the citizens of Winchester, Clark County to keep us apprised of where we are on projects like that. And I know that the fiscal court made a pledge or commitment, I think, was it $100,000? And anybody know how long ago that was?
About 3 months ago. The check was issued last month, I think, wasn't it? Month before, so
But the commitment
Was last year.
That's a couple
Yeah,
of
but-
years
couple of years ago.
Several
yeah,
years
commitment,
ago.
but the check was written just 2
That's-
months ago.
Yeah.
And that's the point I'm getting to, is I know how the wheels turn, and every time you want to do something, somebody else has to do something. So I'm not here to complain about that. You know, the process is always going to be obstacles and awkward situations, but I just would hope that the fiscal court, like you already have pledged and helped the city, that we can get this thing done next year. Here we are, we've dragged our feet for a while, and it's going to be another summer without our kids getting wet. And thanks to the fire department, with the urging of some people who, they have these pop-up events where they go get the kids wet, and I really appreciate people thinking outside the box. I mean, we have to come up with solutions. There's a solution to pretty much everything. We just have to look past some of those things that we don't think will be a detriment and use those to our advantage. So I'm just asking for you guys, the city and the county, to come together for the betterment of all the kids and citizens of Winchester, Clark County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Dolores Hess.
Well, this is my first time for addressing all of you. But anyway, I heard that land across from the Likens Park was going to be sold and industrial. And the second thing, I never saw anything. Well, of course, I don't get the Winchester Sun, so if it was published there. But then I said, well, was there a sign up there identifying what land was going to be sold or industrial? I didn't see any sign. I asked some people, and they said it was a cardboard sign. And I would recommend, if you put up a sign, put it on wood that is perpendicular to the road so one can visibly see it on both sides, either coming and going, so that more people could be informed. And the second, I was here to see what the boundaries are for that property. And I haven't seen any kind of picture, because in a way, I think you need to consider the families that go to Likens Park. It is just super full for the football practice, for the baseball practice, for tennis, and any overflow has to park in that property, you know, across from the entrance. So can you identify the boundaries of that property? And people that move here with children, I think they, you know, like something going on for their kids so that they can see and meet other parents and the kids can practice their sports and stuff. So is there a picture of the boundary? So how do you know how far that goes? At first I thought it was that corner, and then I wasn't sure. And there's a practice field across from the entrance that a lot of different people use. I've seen the dog practice and baseball practice and whatever. So until you find out what the boundaries are, how can you vote on anything to be industrial? So that's my concern. So please consider that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dolores.
Oh, one more recommendation. I know you all have microphones, but I didn't hear a word that you said back there. So, if I'm a teacher, and if you can't understand what's going on, you can't voice an opinion, whether it's pro or con. So, either I'm going to have to sit up here in the front row. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolores.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dolores.
Okay. That concludes the public comments. The next is department head comments. Mary McLemore.
Okay. I was just coming to you all to get, I guess, authorization, the payments that go into community trust to start that process, to get those going into the correct accounts. So if it goes to the general fund, it would go to the general fund.
On the direct deposit,
On the direct deposits, yes.
so those transfers, you just need authorization to deposit those into the new, or get them, the new deposit set up into the account, correct account?
Correct account, correct.
Okay. I'll make a motion to authorize Mary to change those accounts of the direct deposits into the correct operating account.
I second that.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next department head will be Animal Shelter, Addie Wills.
Good morning. I passed out a memo that I just laid it on your all's desk this morning, and it's a grant through the Kentucky Department of Agriculture for spay and neuter for the community. We apply for this every year, and historically, we have been awarded it, and I'm just seeking your all's approval to allow the judge to sign that application so that we can get in on that again this year.
I have a question, not related to that. I know you said that you are like 70-something dogs right now, and that's about twice what you normally like to have. And I saw where Powell County is having an issue with parvo. Is that a big concern for you? I guess it's always a concern.
Yeah, so anywhere that you're housing multiple animals in a tight space, there's always the concern for disease and managing that. So parvo is something that we vaccinate every dog for on intake, and then cats get the equivalent vaccination for their species. But it's definitely a concern, but we do everything we can to mitigate that.
Now, I think they closed their shelter. Will you be seeing more animals brought from Powell County, or?
So we only accept animals from our county.
Oh, okay.
So this could get to be a really in-depth discussion,
Yeah.
and I'm
We'll
certainly
take it up
happy
later.
to talk about that. But I believe that we have an obligation under state law on what we accept and don't accept. And in order to meet that's why we are at the capacity that we're at. A lot of shelters are turning people away, and the way that I understand what my job is, I don't think that we're supposed to do that. But, you know, each county makes their own decisions. So that's why we're at the capacity that we're at right now, is because we're still accepting those animals. We do, you know, we talk in committee, you know, we have a lot of rescue contacts. A lot of rescues are full, so we are still trying to transfer animals out. We're doing adoptions. We just started Empty the Shelters, which is a program sponsored by the Bissell Pet Foundation to lower adoption fees and trying to encourage people to adopt. Bissell pays a portion of those adoption fees, and I think we've talked about that in committee before too. We've participated in those events historically. So, you know, we're doing what we can to get the animals out as quickly as we can. They're just coming in as fast as we can move them out. So.
And I know you're doing all this with a broken air conditioner too. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's hopefully going to get fixed very soon.
Good.
So we're just doing the best we can with what we've got. And, you know, the animal issue is not unique to our county. Nationally, it is a problem right now. I go to a lot of trainings and am part of a lot of discussion boards that relate to that. And everybody is struggling right now. And a lot of that, a lot of people that are way smarter than I am that do all this research and present things, you know, they're linking that back to some of the effects of COVID, and there was a backlog of veterinary services, and so a lot of places were adopting animals out unaltered, and so now we have all those litters of puppies and kittens that were born, and we're still trying to play catch up. So we're just behind the ball on that. So we're doing everything that we can, and just trying to keep up and keep serving the community and fulfill our obligations.
Eddie, do you need a motion to apply for this?
I think I just need the motion to allow the judge to sign it. His signature is required on the application. It's not required to have matching funds. We do present matching funds, but those actually come from the city, so there is no financial obligation from the county.
I'll make a motion to authorize the judge to sign the grant for the 2024 spay neuter grants available through Metro Governments in Kentucky.
Second.
Second, Magistrate Pasley. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie.
Next speaker is Tony Kirk.
Oh, is it on, I guess? No?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It's on.
First of all, I want to come talk to you about our program. We at one time, we were over 150 on. Since that time, we have moved below the 100 on our program line. Instead of sitting on our laurels, we've tried to come up with some sort of way to generate revenue for that. We have a program now that William was instrumental in helping us with, along with UK, and that's our medically assisted treatment program. Powell County is wanting to get into that program. And Partners Healthcare, who we partner with to do that, is going to do that program. They're going to use their opioid abatement money to put 20 people on this program. And if we monitor them, then they will pay for one of our salary for one of our people that we have for 6 months. That has a potential to growing to 60 maybe later on, and if that becomes too much for our program, then they can certainly move to some other way of doing that. But in the meantime, I thought it would be a way for us to generate money for the county and to help our program since our numbers are low. Our numbers are low are pretty simple. I think it's because we are probably, instead of having the first or second time that this has happened for them, it's probably become their 7th or 8th time, and they've kind of ran out of options after the first or second bite at the apple. And the other problem with is that our drug testing tests for THC. Now, we all know that THC is illegal. That's the way it is. But unfortunately, on the street, it's being used extensively, and they cannot be put on our program until they're tested clean, which takes at least 30 days, sometimes longer if it depends on their body type and things like that, and their much usage that they have. So before I talk to Partners again, I wanted to make sure that would be feasible with the court, and then I've talked to the county attorney, Mr. Elkins, and the judge executive, but I just wanted to make sure that all was feasible before we started getting into negotiations, and make sure that was feasible for y'all.
So you're wanting us to approve helping Powell County, and they're gonna pay 6 months of a guy's salary?
That's correct. That's correct. And that'll all be negotiated out, and we'll do all that through a memorandum of understanding and things like that. But at the meantime, I just wanted to bring this to the body to see that y'all were receptive to that idea before I go forward and start negotiating that. And y'all will have I'm sure we'll have an agreement that y'all will approve later on.
Sounds good to me.
I'm okay with that.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay.
I just want to tell the court real fast, I came to you all 2 months ago and told you I applied for a grant for $108,000, which I got. Well, then I applied for another grant for $234,000 for recording, and I'm happy to say that I got that check Friday.
Great job.
Hey, awesome.
So,
Congratulations.
yes,
For recording?
for recording only.
Recording.
So that will help all by, yes. By law, we have to be back scanned for 60 years. So I wasn't sure I was gonna get that one since I just got the one for $108,000, but I took a chance and got the whole thing.
This will be for the real estate
Real estate
records.
only. I
Yeah,
cannot
real
use
estate
it for
only.
election. I cannot use it for anything except for recording.
That's huge.
Excellent.
So, anyway.
That's great.
So will this get us online?
Oh, we've been online since. I
Right,
came in.
I guess all the old records, will that get?
That's the goal. By
That's the
20 to
goal.
25, 60 years has to be back scanned.
Okay.
And so we are that close to having them all done, and this money will push us over the edge.
Good
That's
deal.
great.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Congratulations.
So thank you.
Judge, is it appropriate to ask for a report from the jail at this time? Can I do that? The jailer's here. I just wanted an update on the air conditioner and the lost prisoners and so forth.
If you like, we can.
Good morning. Just appreciate everybody. I know you all get the same questions I do. Where we at? Is it still hot? Yes, it is. Hopefully, our little press release kind of answers some of the questions that you all have to deal with as well as I do from the public and the people that maybe don't have all the current information. But I thank you all for doing what you've done. I know everybody here, it seems like a long process, but it hadn't been. It's went pretty quick. And I think in our news release, we explained, look, they had to be custom built for the building where it's 34 years old. We're doing good. So I don't wear you out with boredom. Where we are today, the air conditioned, the largest unit of the two is set. It's in place. It's ready to be turned on. Fayette Heating and Air was there from about 8 o'clock on yesterday morning. They have to have someone from a train company where it's a trained product, they have to be there to do a checklist on it and fire the unit. They did not show up yesterday, so I've been on the phone this morning about 7:15 trying to get an update. They were going to send someone to Train's office this morning, and as soon as they get an answer, they're going to report to me, and I'll share that as quickly as I can out to you all so that you all are aware of it. So that's what we're waiting on. We're waiting on these people to come do their checklist. It's ready to fire, which is good news. I know it's not running yet, but it's still good news. We're a lot better off than where we were. And unless something changes, it's on schedule for this Saturday that they'll have another crane come in, take the small unit off, reset the small one. And probably next week, they should be able to get it fabricated, plumbed, and have it where it'll be operational as well. So we're seeing daylight. I know it still affects us. The only thing down the road, is it's taking a little bit longer than I anticipated. I can't control what Train does or anything else, but I'm gonna tell you, those guys from Fayette Heat and Air have been in there. They've worked diligently every day. The only curve they got thrown was last Thursday, 4th of July. It was a holiday for their company, apparently. So other than that, we're doing good. We're making progress. I'll try and keep you updated just as quick as I can. I know I sit here and worry about it, so I don't want you all to worry about it. I'm sitting here looking at we're losing 2 or 3 weeks worth of income because we don't have any state inmates. We don't have any federal inmates. But just be patient with me. I promise you I'm going to do my best to set fire on the woods, and we'll have 11 months here to come back, so just be patient with me. I'm not a quitter. I promise you I'm going to hustle as hard as I can. That's about all I have for you right now.
Jailer, I just got a question.
Yes,
We
sir.
were supposed to have the first one set, and then the following Saturday, the second one was supposed to be set. What was the delay on that?
The delay was they didn't get all the fabrication and plumbing done. But I'm telling you, ever since they said it on that Saturday. I think that was maybe June the 29th. May not be correct on that date, but they said it that Saturday, and believe me, they were in there Monday morning, and they have they've been there hard and fast as they can go. I mean, there's probably been 8 or 10 guys on that roof going as hard as they could go doing it. And I guess they have separate divisions that come in and do certain parts of that, but they all been there. They all been working hand in hand. We've done everything we could do to make sure that they have quick access to the roof, smooth movement, with their equipment, tools. But other than that, I feel things have went very well. It's just a major task and major undertaking, but they're doing well. I think that everything will be fine in the end here.
Can I get a clarification also for my constituents, our constituents, and also the court? I think you might have mentioned this before, but the federal inmates and the state inmates that have been removed due to the temperature issues will be brought back. It's not that we've lost them.
Right.
They're just
Right.
in a holding area waiting for things to come back up, so we're not really necessarily starting from ground zero again.
They assured us that that they're earmarked for Clark County, that we will get those inmates back Bad thing is they come and got them, they'll probably put it on us, have to come get them, but that's okay. We're all right with that, you know. That's just part of the process. Money's money, business, business.
Thank you, Jailer Dolan.
Thank you.
Questions? Okay, next item on the agenda is, this is information only. You have the Monday morning memo for the week of June the 10th, 2024 from the IDA, the Winchester Clark County Monthly Transit Report, the Winchester Clark County EMA CSEP board meeting minutes, and we have a constable reports and the Clark County Coroner's Report for June of 2024. Next item is the discussion on the East Clark County Water District closing out certain KCO loans. And basically, all I need is to get court approval to close out all these loans. These were brought to our attention by KCO. These go back to, some of them go back to 1993. The loans have been paid off for years, but evidently the paperwork was never closed out. So we received this packet from KCO, and I think there's 3, maybe 4 different loans in here. But like I said, they've all been paid off and cleared for at least 4 to 5 years.
Oh, they were closed out before,
Longer than
they
that.
were- before we were on the court.
So anyway, the paperwork never got finished, so.
And Keiko just now realizing to send that to us after,
Yeah, we just received this,
because we had zero balances on those when we came on the court, Robert.
Right,
Our
they-
first time.
so it's really just a paperwork for their records to close it out. I guess I just need permission to go ahead and sign these
I
all
don't think you
off.
really need our permission. I mean, we'll give it to you, but I don't think you really need it. I mean, just an administrative task. I would assume there'll be some fees to file paperwork, but aside from that, it should just be an administrative task.
Is it something that we need to have, legal to review? I mean, do you think there was any need to review any?
Got no idea.
Usually you pay off a loan that you know, take the paperwork and dismiss the lien.
When I received all this, first thing I did is I contacted the East Clark County Water District, the manager over there, and, you know, he's gone through everything, and the paperwork, and, you know, he's very comfortable with all of it. So basically, I mean, if we just need to close this out and let KCO close theirs out.
You need a motion, I'll make a motion, but I don't think we're gonna need it, but go right ahead.
I mean,
What's the motion?
To approve closing out the loans. I would assume it's just filing paperwork with the county clerk's office and sending it to KCO. Seems pretty simple
Well,
to
but
me.
there's a lot of documents there.
Yeah, there's some
Well, there's
lien
4
documents.
loans, I mean,
it's three different loans. One was the water tower, upgrading a water system, I think, and something else.
When you look those up on the GIS map, it has Keiko's name on it. So the court transferred, apparently, would have had to transfer those pieces of property
well,
as
it's a lease.
some
That's
sort of
why,
lien or
because
something.
we can't take out a loan, it's a lease. And this will, the lease, because we can't take out a loan over the term of 1 year, so that's why we do that. So we sell it to KCO and they lease it to us and they give it back to us when it's paid off.
What if I make a motion, we table this, allow the county attorney's office to review the documents, and we put it on the docket for the next meeting, and upon the county attorney's approval, then we can take it off the floor and make a motion to sign and release.
I second that.
Makes no difference to me. I'll withdraw my motion.
Was there
I'll
a se-
second it.
I second it.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to basically, we're going to table this and pending review by the county attorney. And it'll be on the next court docket. Okay.
We need to vote, do we not?
Was there any further discussion on that? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Next item is a presentation by the Kentucky River Foothills for Indigent Services. And I think this is mainly to help answer the questions that we had concerning payment from the general fund over to Kentucky River Foothills. And the question that came up is this a volunteer program, or are we required by any statute to do that? So,
Well, good morning, Judge and Magistrates, and those that are here in the audience. My name is John Roden. I'm the Deputy Director with Kentucky River Foothills Development Council. Just kind of just make sure we're all on the same page for what the program is, how it operates, and then I'll yield to any questions and try to get those answers to the best of my ability. Kentucky River Foothills is a community action agency. We're one of 23 within the state. Clark, Estill, Madison, and Powell are our core service areas. And just so information for you all, we actually were founded in 1962 here in Winchester. Current service operations for this program that we're talking about for indigent services, as well as our outreach offices, our senior citizens programming, and our healthy marriage, all are conducted out of 32 Meadow Street, the Generation Center. For this specific program that we're talking about, looking back, and I thank Fran for tracking down the original agreement, it was a partnership in 1987, and it does reference back the requirement of KRS statutes for that service provision. Now, looking to see current KRS statutes, this is that require. I was not able to identify that specific one, but it does have a broad public service component within it. The funds that are allocated by the fiscal court, it was for the administrative service side. So we, as Foothills Development Council, we had the systems in place to offer and provide these types of programming. Whenever it was the original partnership, the county was doing the administrative piece, so they had that cost associated. The agreement moved all the service provision over to Foothills, and we do not charge any administrative fees. So all of the funding that is provided back to the constituency goes directly to those clients. And it's for gaps that they may not be eligible for our program, or our funds have already been exhausted. So we will tap into our allocations from state and federal grants that we receive first before we utilize the fiscal court funds. And those are for those individuals that are below 150% federal poverty, for identifying for utility assistance or rental assistance. You're eligible once every 6 months max, so you can, if you utilize the services for utility assistance, then you're not able to access any additional funds for at least 6 months after that. Primarily, we saw an uptick during COVID, so we did have to increase, with approval, moving from $100 to $300 on the utility assistance because the arrearages and just the impact that we've seen, let alone inflation where we're at today. But just so that the fiscal court knows, administratively, fee structure for us, we do that all internally. There's no cost back to the fiscal court. It's the fiscal court's dollars that are allocated back out. The funding goes directly to the vendors. So we provide one voucher to the client that they took to the vendor. We keep one for our records, and then we send one back over to the fiscal court, just so that we have that paper trail so everyone knows where this is going. And the funds never directly go to the client's hands. They go directly from the fiscal court's account to the vendor being paid. So it's dangerous giving me a microphone. I'll keep going on, but I want to stop and answer any questions or anything that I can give assistance for.
How do you do the screening for the person to decide whether they qualify for that or not?
The screening, there's components that we have already in place, so we have to have for ID, so security cards, income verification for the last month. So it's all of the federal requirements that we have in process. That is what we utilize. So we have the eligibility criteria already established for our programs, and this folds the same way in. It's all kept within our databases. So we utilize a program called Empower, used to be Castanet. It's across the state for the tracking of these types of programs. So if you ever see LIHEAP or CSBG, the Community Service Block Grants, that's how we utilize, and this goes right with it. So it's the 150% poverty or below, and then we track out. We also keep a separate roster on Excel just so that you can see specifically, this was the client, this is the amount, this is the date, so that we're ensuring a duplication.
How many people try to qualify that don't qualify that come in?
The number that qualify and that don't, that's I'm gonna give you a lawyer's answer, it depends. Probably there's certain programming that they may be eligible for, but the funds have already been exhausted. But for us, we utilize these funds. Traditionally, you're looking at the allocation of around $2,000 a month, give or take. So once we exhaust out that draw, after we've already maxed out for what we have first, that can depend on what that need is. So it's, we could serve more, definitely. We saw an upkick within our 4-county service area. Last subsidy program, we served over 2,000 families, and those are unduplicated.
So is Kentucky, just to clarify, you mentioned this earlier, but Kentucky River Foothills, they're organized as a Kentucky nonprofit
Correct.
corporation.
We're a 501c3.
501c3. And so, as you may or may not know, we've been discussing this kind of off and on the last couple months. And I sort of tripped the discussion because on our bills list, we would have 4 or 5 KU bills and 4 or 5 WMU bills and a couple of rent payments to the housing authority and so forth. So as we started discussing, our finance director advised us that she would get the vouchers that people would, or that you would send over, or whether individuals came over, they would be sent over to the courthouse, and that we would pay those. And so what our discussion centered around isn't, of course, whether or not it's, deserving, the recipients are deserving, or whether or not it's good to help people with utilities. It really centered around whether or not we should be paying this out of the general fund, which, we pay the obligations of the county out of the general fund typically. So payroll, what we transfer to the jail, what we, our debt obligations, all of those things. Again, our payroll, which is one of the biggest things, health insurance for employees, all that comes out of there. So then the question is, we're spending several $1,000s a year on these utility bills and so forth. So one of the things we discussed was, and certainly since you all are a 501c3, is, we have the Clark County Community Fund, and we open that up to applications for charitable organizations once a year, and that's usually next month, mid to late August. So, my suggestion to the court is that Kentucky River Foothills be encouraged to apply for that. If we're not going to pay these funds out of the general fund, which we voted to discontinue effective August 30th, is to encourage your organization, your board, to apply for that. In other words, like apply for, let's say, a lump sum agreement, a lump sum amount that you all could budget and divvy up towards helping towards utility and rent payments. And I think the consensus was that that's, for us, probably a more appropriate pool of money to pay that out of in the general fund. Because this past year in particular has been a pretty tight year budget-wise for the county, especially with what we've had to, invest in the jail and, and you probably heard the air conditioning report. We're borrowing $1.5 million, bonded that. So long story short, that's what gave rise to this, is not any questioning of what your organization is doing or that you all are doing anything wrong. It's just a matter of, should we be paying this out of our general fund? And I think the agreement or the decision a few weeks ago is that we shouldn't be. But again, I would absolutely encourage you and your board to make that application to the community fund next month. I think that opens up usually by late August, and those applications will be in the county judge's office. So that's just a little background there.
No, and I completely understand the positioning and the questions. And even as we're looking at for the programming services. But I had watched some of the the different, from the fiscal courts and understanding that. For us as Foothills, we want to be a good partner within the community. And we've enjoyed that great partnership, and we expect and hope that continues on with the fiscal court, and not just in this area, but also within all of our other service provision. One of the questions, kind of circling back to it, so I go, and if for the court decides to go through the community foundation side, absolutely, that's kind of what we do. That's how we operate. The KRS on the agreement itself, and that was an 87 agreement, so we're all trying to, I personally looking back, okay, well, but the agreement did not identify the specific statute number that was in. So that's one of the areas when it asks, like, is it a requirement? The agreement references the KRS that there was a requirement, but I'm not able to find within the statutes, the 2024 statutes, that is. So that's
one of
just,
the things
I
we
throw
talked
that out there, not to kind of show,
Yeah, I
but just, that's, from what the 87 agreement was to now, but absolutely, you know, we do appreciate the opportunity to work alongside, and if there's any questions, or any of our other services, or if there's something we can't have.
Do any of your other counties pay for the indigent services?
If they do, it's not through Foothills, not this way. They do provide all of our counties, and we are grateful that we receive funding from each of our counties to provide support.
I
to the program.
realize that, but they don't pay a separate like we do.
There's not the voucher, the Clark County Fiscal Court funds is the only one that I'm aware of.
And you have how many counties?
We serve four, or
What I thought,
Clark,
4
Estill,
counties.
Madison, and Powell.
In an unrelated topic,
Yes, sir.
transit.
Yes, sir.
I saw a few weeks ago where there was a meeting about discontinuing the transit service.
For the Winchester, the commuter route.
Right, can you tell me the status of that?
Absolutely, I can.
And that was just the route that goes to Lexington, is that correct?
Correct. So the Winchester to Lexington commuter route, one of the things that we were watching, and as y'all were mentioning, looking at for financing as things get tighter. Even though we're a nonprofit, we also experience the same. The Winchester to Lexington commuter route was annually around 20,000 behind from what we actually collect from fees and the reimbursement, the match from OTD. So when we look at, okay, for the ridership and what we're putting out, so we held the public hearing to identify, so we need to increase ridership, and we also have to increase rates to make it financially stable. Because for us as a nonprofit, starting out fiscal year, already knowing we're going to be 20,000 behind for that one route, is that the best allocation of our resources? So what we agreed to at the public hearing was that if we were able to increase our ridership to averaging 10, and that it was a prepaid amount, so we had to move from 75 a month to 150 a month, and give that 3 months to see, does that close the gap? Currently, our ridership, whenever I spoke with our transportation director last week, we had 3 commits. So we're well behind on it, but we will continue to monitor. Office of Transportation Delivery has notified, and it's not just Foothills, it's across the board. The dollar amounts were drastically cut from the requested grants this past year, close to half.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious, since you
No,
were here,
I think that's
I thought about asking.
I think these are the productive types of conversations, and anytime that there are questions, so that's what we want to make sure that we're serving that well.
What do you feel the low rider reason would be? Because, I mean, you keep thinking poverty's bad, economy's rough. There should be people, it should be standing room only on that bus. What do you feel the reason for it being lower is? Or just a personal opinion?
Personal opinion, I believe that there's parts that it's where we could go through. Also, for us, attracting, for what we can having all the staff on for the driving, for riders. Whenever we lose someone, we had to have drivers come in from another county. So it's the stability, and that's an internal, that's an us thing. The others, marketing, identifying, and just really getting the word out. These are the routes that we have to try to get those individuals to move forward. Some of our ridership also, they have access to personal vehicles, so it can be preference, it's a cost savings to them. But those are some of the areas we're looking at. I tried to identify are there additional stops, modifications, but it leaves out from Walmart parking lot in the morning, and then it has 3 stops there in Lexington at the VA, UK, Good Sam.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
Ridership. Local ridership has decreased too.
Yes, sir.
Do you see a problem with that in the future, or is that not going to be an issue?
I see that there's opportunities for us in the future. So you can tell it's like
That's a good question. That's a good answer.
do I think that there's modifications that we can look at working in collaboration with the city and county and with the industrial parks of where it's like, are we going and the routes set up exactly where we want them at with some of the expansion that's going on out within the industrial park with BCTC? Are there other ways that we could look to provide services to increase that ridership?
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
So let me clarify what you were just saying. Someone trying to say something.
Go ahead.
You were saying that the stops up there are mostly for hospitals, basically, in the
For
general
the staff
facilities.
going in, correct.
For staff going into the hospital working. So
Yes,
it's not
sir.
really, so you have to either be an employee of that type of thing or needing some type of a medical service. It really doesn't expand past that point.
The medical service provision, that is a different routing and different funding. So we have routes that go from Winchester to the hospitals, and that's billed out through Medicare, so that's a separate, this is a transit route. And it originally was established through a grant, but that grant expired in 2018, 2019.
Okay.
So whenever that did, we as an agency, we continued on the service, but it's just that service funding, the levels have dropped.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One last question on the number of riders. I know we used to get reports, but it was marked on riders, meaning, one person may have taken 10 trips or something like that. Do you have a number on actual individual riders, meaning how many people individual people utilize the service?
You're talking about locally or to
Locally.
the commuter?
I can see if we can have an unduplicated number for you. I do know for the way that our accounting and the ridership, that is all aggregate, because it's the trips that we take on it. But I can look to see if we can get an unduplicated.
Is there 100 people that are, I know it may have 3,000 trips in it in a month, but or do we have 100, Clark Countyans that are utilizing that service, or do we have 50, or do we have 500? I think all that information is very helpful.
I believe that we can collect that for you.
But we appreciate your partnership and
as do we.
everything that y'all done for the community, so thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Next item is the Clark County Road Grants and Solid Waste Funding presentation.
Good morning. I wanted to take this opportunity to run through a slideshow that I created to help the public, not so much the fiscal court, understand there's a million different ways that when the phone rings that it can be answered. And there seems to be some confusion as of probably in the last 10 to 12 months about the road and solid waste department's actual role. And I put together this little presentation here, and I'd like to go through some of it with you real quick, and I'll try to do the accelerated version. So if you can maybe hold questions towards the end, we can kind of blast through those. Like I said, I'm going to fast forward through some of this stuff. Basically, what we're going to cover is some of the grants that we've done over the last 5.5 years, discretionary funds, emergency funds, county road aid, municipal road aid, which is our largest pot of money. So everybody in here, I use this all the time. How do you eat elephant? This is our elephant. All of those roads, a little over 300 of them exist that are just on our list, one bite at a time. But unfortunately, the tail keeps growing. The minute we blacktop a road, it is subject to damages the minute we leave it. The minute we make any type of repairs, we potentially have to come back, edge damage, things of that nature. So I'm not going to go through every line of this. Most of us in here know, but the public probably doesn't. The motor fuel tax is our primary source of funding. It's 99% of our source of funding. And as you can see through there, on average, it's 46.5 cents per gallon in the state of Kentucky, bringing in a little over $700 million. And if you look at rural secondary, and KYTC, they're getting the largest share. County road aid gets 128 million, municipal road aid gets 54 million. Those are broken down into different avenues of how they come down to us, but at the end of the day, we get 18.3% of the motor fuel tax that is collected out of 700 million that's shared among 120 counties in Kentucky. And then the municipal road aid, like the city of Winchester, and we also get municipal road aid for some of our outlying places like Trapp and Ford and areas like that. When you look at asphalt use, this is also going to be beneficial because it also helps with the roads. There's over 78,000 miles of center lane. That means one direction, that's not both, so double that if you want to. And if you look, there's over 40,000 county road miles across the state of Kentucky. So we're almost double the size of the state and private road network, and we only get 18% of the funding. Because the number one question is that we get at the road department is, when are you going to blacktop my road? And that's primarily, and then they have don't understand if it's a state, county, or city route. So the state's broken up into districts, starting in western Kentucky as District 1, marching across the state. We're in District 7, which is one of the largest highway districts. If you look at that list of counties, Scott, Bourbon, Montgomery, Clark, Fayette, Madison, Jessup, Garrett, Woodford, Anderson, Mercer, and Bull, there are some big towns in there, and some of those are much, much larger than us. So when District 7 starts looking at their projects, people always ask, well, why is Clark County doing a guardrail and Bourbon County's getting a 4-lane highway, or Scott County, things like that? All of those things come into play. So we need Clark County to grow. This is the fifth formula, which is how they break down that 18.3%. They factor in our road miles, our rural population, our rural land, and equal share among all accounts. And then 3% of that is held back for emergency funds when we have to do road slips or a flood happens, takes out a road, things of that nature. The discretionary funds and 80-20 funds, these are cost share methods that we typically use. By and large, if it weren't for discretionary funds, most of the paving that we've gotten done in the last 5.5 years wouldn't have been a reality. So the legislative body in Frankfurt, they have divvied this up, and they're going to take over what's now called a County Priority Projects Program, which is about $20 million, and a contingency account, which is about $5 million. So that's no longer going to be controlled by the governor's office. We're still going to go through the Office of Secondary Road to ask for those discretionary dollars. This is Clark County right here. There's about 180 miles of state roads, 45 miles of interstate, because that counts all the lanes, 88 miles of city streets, there's 60 miles of private roads, and there's a little over 215 county road miles, for a total of 588 center lane miles. As you can see, we are the largest proportion of that in the county road. Cost, one of the reasons that we're not going out and just blacktopping every single road that we can is it all comes down to money. If you look at 2019 when we started, we could call up and lay asphalt for $86 a ton. Now it's $132 a ton. And you can go through there. For us to buy asphalt just to do pothole repairs, it was $65, now it's $83. Stone went from, you might as well say 10 to 15. Salt, look at the salt price, $63 to $135 a ton. That's what we paid on the last contract. Of course, everybody know fuel up and down. Our labor average has barely went up a little bit. And if you look at the bottom, the interesting number is at the county road aid right there, it's hardly went up at all. So the funding mechanism just isn't keeping up with the amount of what we're asked to do. This is how the money pretty much gets broken down every single year that comes in. There it goes. You got, in 2019, your county road aid, municipal road aids, we had a $225,000 discretionary award. We did the rubberized asphalt grant. We had a couple of emergency fund projects. We had a driver insurance company pay out for a bridge they hit, and then we East Kentucky Power helped us pay part of Jackson Ferry when they put in the substation. and then we milled Vernon Hills ourselves. And then we're just gonna go to the next one here real quick. The next fiscal year breaks down pretty much, they're all pretty much similar. County road aids, as you see, these numbers stay relatively close. And then this is when I also took over solid waste, so we got into a little more grants and a little more active. We got our largest discretionary award ever, $481,000. Tire grants, flex fund, everybody knows when Casey comes here and does his presentation about the flex funds. We started doing a lot in litter grants. We did a bridge project that year. And then there was also an old FEMA project that had been finished up in 2017. And I was able to reach out to Andy Barr's office, and he ushered through some paperwork and got us in contact with FEMA and paid us $150,000 for that project down on the river. The next year, same deal, funding breaks down pretty much the same. As you can see, everything's within probably $10,000–15,000 on most of this stuff. We got another large discretionary award, $386,000 that did a bunch of paving. Well, you see our compost grant, substantial. We started getting a lot of money in that for the composting program, the dead animal removal. Flex funds, same stuff. Tire grants, same thing every year. Like I said, I'm just going to speed through these for the sake of time. Same type of grants, flex, litter grants. Did another bridge project. We did all of the crossings down on 7 Creeks, which is Dry Fork Creek. Concreted all those in. People had been mentioning them for a while. Knocked them out. We, in fiscal year, I guess 22, we were able to get an illegal open dump grant when the river flooded real bad. Helped down there to help clean all that up. I think we hauled off like 90-some dump truck loads of trash. We had emergency road slips down on Jackson Ferry and Bobby. We didn't get a discretionary award that year. And then that'll catch us up to almost now. See, the county road aid when we started was like $989,000 or something. So, it's went up to $60,000–$70,000 overall. Same grants. And then we got the discretionary, $153,000. So only 1 year we didn't get discretionary amounts. And then we recently got the $85,000 compost grant again and another ag development grant. So here's where everything circles around money. The road department is responsible for, construction, maintenance, construction, and reconstruction of county roads and right-of-ways, and that's what our funds can be used for. Although we do a litany of other things, we have to use LGA dollars, like when we do parks and mow and things like that, Christmas trees, and all that. So these are just some of the things that we're doing on a daily basis. So a lot of this stuff is as it's needed. We can't do too many things preemptively because, as you'll see here in another slides, we just don't have the money to do that. And when it comes to road work, the only thing preemptive you can do outside of maybe a crack sealing program that'll buy you a few years is full width paving. And as you'll see right here in the next couple of slides, it's very, very costly to do. And then on my solid waste job, we do all those things there: litter sweeps, community outreach, tons of reporting, lots of grants, and a lot of Saturday kind of stuff. You're doing a lot of tire roundups and things like that. So here it starts from 2019 to 2024, and if you look at any grid you want to, you can see outside of the other tab, which is insurance, funds, or just things you weren't anticipating, interest on accounts and whatnot. For by and large, everything's pretty even over the last 5.5 years. So out of all the funds managed since 2019, we'll go over this real quick. In total, county road aid, municipal road aid, and flex dollars, which are indicative mostly of paving, is $6.7 million. I've written 1.3 in grants and another 1.2 in discretionary. These were awarded, not, these were actually what we brought in. So if you combine those, that's $2.6 million. So 38.6% of the funds that have been managed in my office since 2019 have been grants and discretionary funds. And if it weren't for those, you know, a lot of this stuff wouldn't be, have happened. Estimated, we spent $4.5 million on blacktop and roads, 1.6 on labor, 1.2 on equipment, $650,000 on salt that lasts 15 minutes, but you gotta do it. Estimated $325,000 on fuel, which leaves you the $950,000. Now this is an average, which is roughly $14,600 a month left over. And that's to do a lot of things, asking a lot of money. This is the roads paved since 2019. If it has a yellow towel box on it, that road is paved. I love that slide right there.
It's a great slide.
It's a lot. It's a lot. This is full width paving on the left. We have full width end to end, 40.22 miles. And then if you take the patch paving, like, you know, Red River, recently we did, you know, 3/4 of the road, so it's not counted as a full road, another 4.8 miles. So that's 45.2 miles. We've got a little over 200. So we've done almost a quarter of our road network in 5 years. Now granted, I don't know if we'll be able to duplicate that because like I said, you know, they've changed the discretionary funds and things like that. And 1 year we didn't get it, but that number will be higher. So this is a road list that I inherited when I came in. So a lot of people ask about the methods about when their road gets paved. And I totally understand that. Right now I'm doing the road inspections. I've driven over 200 of them. I've got about 100 left to go. And at this point in time, I have at least 22 roads that need blacktop in the end. Some of them are in subdivisions and may not be very long, but then some of them are 3 and 4 miles long. And those prices don't exist anymore, as you see out there. You know, this was this list came from 2018 or so, and it was $80 a ton laid, and now we're at 130. So it's almost double. So it's very, very hard to keep up. As you can see, everything in yellow has been paved. So when we go out and we evaluate a road, there's a science behind it. But the road committee and I met the other day, we're looking at AI technology to help us with this. This year's budget, after we go through everything, buy our salt, do our mowing, use our flex funds, at the end, that leaves roughly $220,000 for a year of an department that has 12 employees, all these trucks, equipments, and things like that to do projects with. That is also based on this number right here, which is a $246,000 discretionary request. So if that doesn't happen, and we do not get that request, that $220,000 pretty much goes away, and the only projects we can do is the balance of, right here, of the road material, which buys our gravel, concrete, fixes bridge damage, anything like that. So that's where we're at. Like I said, that's the end of my presentation. If anybody's got any questions, I know we've been in here a minute, but I'll be glad to answer them.
I just noticed that your dollar figures didn't include the paving we did this spring with the ARPA money.
Yeah, I think they were on there.
I didn't see it out, you didn't have it lined out as a separate item.
Oh, no.
No, you might have had, it was on the paving list, but when you were counting dollars, you didn't count those dollars.
Right. Yeah, that was 500,000,
Yeah,
580,000, I think.
I mean, you had it as a pave, but you didn't have it in your dollars.
Okay, my mistake.
Just,
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great
Thanks,
job.
Al.
Okay, next item is, these will be notes in a minute. We have the Clark County Treasurer's report for the fourth quarter of 2024. We have the indigent burial of William C. Richardson Jr. on Wednesday. His date of death was June the 15th of 2024. We have the jailer's monthly report for June. The Clark County Fire Department monthly report for April, May, and June. And we have the Clark County Fiscal Court, the admin code comp plan, the 1% increase for 2024. List of all the salaries. Next item on the agenda will be the second reading of the Clark County Admin Code for 2025.
Okay, were you all able to dig deeper into what we talked about the last time? And we've made some minor changes, the 45 hours, that kind of thing. But there were some outstanding questions about a few items. So I just wondered what decision.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
Page 22, that item 6, that had to do with the sick leave.
Okay.
I'm fine with leaving it like it was, as opposed to changing it.
Okay, going back to not paying out.
I mean, because it costs us a ton of money to start with, and
I agree.
I just as soon go back to the way we had it and not do the red line version that you proposed.
Okay.
That was proposed.
Okay. So just, everybody's in agreement with that.
And I'm going to bring this up again. It has nothing to do with what your proposals was, but a change we made back on page 5 that we made some time ago was the second Wednesday and fourth Thursday at 8:30 and 5:30. That is still confusing. This was, the agenda went out, and before Monday morning, I had 3 people contact me, want to know if it was Wednesday or Thursday because the agenda was wrong. You know, I know you all want to prove it, but still, it's still very confusing to the public and apparently staff as well. The Thursday and Wednesday, and I won't even make a motion to change it, but that is, I want to voice that concern because, you know, like
I'd agree with you on that. I'd like to have them both at 5:30, but.
Well, I'd like to have them both at 8:30. You know.
Hey, we'll just compromise.
You know,
and leave
as far
it
as
at-
that goes, I could do one meeting a month, because we have 30 days to pay our bills, and if we pay the bills, I mean, I could do one meeting a month. And that'd be, 5:30 be fine with me if you want to do that. I'll compromise with you. I'll go one meeting a month at 5:30 if you want to make that motion. I'll vote for it.
Robert, we can't even get through a month without 5 special call meetings
That-
sometimes.
That's what I say, we have so many meetings anyway. Let's do one meeting a month at 5:30, that's fine with me.
Meetings might be 4 hours long.
Anyway,
Oh,
I
you're
just wanted to bring that up because it was brought to my attention again this week. So, let's see. And I'll yield the floor to anybody who wants to have questions, because I've got a whole bunch of them here. I don't want to dominate the discussion.
Well, I'll have it, but what about the holidays? I think we went to the sick leave. I just want to make sure, do we want to leave it like it was and everybody gets 8?
Yeah,
Or do we want to make those increments?
I think like you had it.
Stay the same. 'Cause
Stay the same.
I think all of us concerned about open Pandora's box, because different schedules, different
Right.
departments.
But I would recommend that if it's okay, I'm gonna say up to 8. That way, I feel more comfortable taking for the judge's office to 7. So if I say up to 8, then that way I don't feel like I'm doing something I shouldn't. So I always just give a 7 because that's their work day.
But
Okay, I just want to put that clarification. Okay.
Page 61, section 9.1 has to do with the boards and commissions about budgets and audits. I don't know that this has ever been enforced by any judge that I've been aware of that requires these agencies to submit an itemized budget and an audit. If we're not doing it, let's just strike that section, because it's not, to my knowledge. Do you know that, Judge?
I've not seen them.
Well, then let's, if we're not going to require it, let's just strike it. Okay.
I guess the question I would have is why are we not doing it if it's on there?
Well, Robert makes a good point, and I'm in favor of striking it, because if you look at DLG, if you're a special purpose governmental entity, you're required to file those things with
You're supposed to file them with them anyway.
So I don't know if it makes any point having it in the administrative code. I think you make a good point, you might as well strike it.
Makes no difference to me. I just wanted to bring it
Glad
up.
to have them, so,
So just take out chapter 9?
see why not?
Take it out.
Yeah.
I'm neutral on it. I just wanted to bring it up for the, I just wanted to bring it up for
Yeah,
that
take it
body's
out.
discussion.
That's where you are, so I'll just.
Yeah, I'll go along with whatever the majority wants to do.
Was there a consensus? Let's give her a consensus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then that way that we can get a corrected copy and vote on it at our next meeting.
Yeah.
Got no problem with
I
it.
thought we were
I'm
doing
fine
it
with it.
already last.
As long as it's happened to be done, you know, but even if it's outside of us, that's fine.
It's a lot easier to take out than.
Oh, sure.
There you go, there you go.
I'm okay with that. What about the job descriptions?
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
I'm getting to it. I mean,
Maybe some wiggle room
I'm just 3 tabs through.
Okay. You have the floor, Robert.
Okay, if nobody else wants to talk, now this don't have a page number, because the page number's ended in the compensation plan, so.
Right, I will do the page numbers once we get a consensus about the job description.
Okay, will we list all the salaries by department and exempt and what all? Just want to verify, all these numbers that have changed, have we already approved all those numbers?
We have.
So there's no,
Well, some of those numbers we recommended last time.
Okay.
That you all did approve.
so there isn't really a change, this is,
Not really.
we just really haven't put them in the book yet.
That's
We
right.
haven't updated it.
We
That's what I'm saying,
have-
we just haven't put them in the book yet.
Right, yeah.
Okay. And I noticed on the second page, under solid waste, we have an employee but not a coordinator with a pay amount. And I just wonder why that is.
I just forgot. We just didn't include.
Can we include that with a starting pay amount? And what would that be?
Whatever you all decide.
So it would be solid waste coordinator and we need to start it at something. What's the current, of course, I know Alan's been doing it for a while.
Well, he's just been paying, but he gets an hourly rate, but it's based on his rate.
His tenure.
So, yeah, I don't know exactly how much, but,
So if we hire a new one,
right.
it shouldn't be near what he's making. Are you saying?
I don't know. I don't know what your plans are for that department. I know that, before he took it on, it was a part-time position, or Gary Emerson did it. So it was kind of, his salary was combined all.
So you're suggesting it should be an exempt position?
No, not the way we're doing it now, because I don't know if that would be a 40-hour position.
I got you.
That's because there's a lot of things that have changed over the several years. I mean, you're running a whole compost facility, which requires a lot of federal EPA stuff and inspections.
Oh, I know that.
So it's hard to make that determination right now for me personally.
Well, I'm just saying, if we have to
Why
hire,
don't you just put coordinator to be determined?
Or you could do it like you've done the others, do the exempt-hourly. So
let's do that.
Yeah, that'd be
Let's do
It's
that.
gonna be hourly, but you don't know.
Let's include and do it that way.
That'd be better.
That works.
That way we've got a position that we can
Okay.
address. Without that, I don't think we could do nothing.
Right, well, it was a good point, I appreciate you bringing that to my attention.
Yeah, okay, now, anybody else want to talk? I mean,
Floor's all yours.
It's all yours, Robert.
when we get back to these other, we do not have a job description for IT. Of course, we don't have any IT. But that don't mean we don't need one and shouldn't look at one. Does anybody have the feeling we need an IT description in case we have money to hire someone? Because I know when Eric was here, we paid him additional $10,000 to do that. But now we don't have anybody doing it, and we see the result. The only time that screen has been used in the last 3 years was 5 minutes ago.
It doesn't take an IT person to hit the power on.
Well, I'm just saying.
I'm just saying too.
Well, maybe that's an excuse. I don't know. But anyway,
Well, let me address that.
Okay.
Keep looking. I was gonna ask you all and bring it to your attention, and I've talked to the judge about this, is that he has contacted ProSound, who has put this in, who brought it in. And I've asked him if I can be involved in getting that reestablished and getting it going and hopefully start utilizing this again. But because that's kinda outside my job description, I kinda wanna make sure that you all are okay with that, so the judge can decide how he wants to take it and move with it. But I'm happy to do
What-
it. I have
I'm not gonna get
a
into that
soft
now.
spot for doing, I was here when we got in, worked with Daniel and, you know, getting it just updated, so kinda like to see it going and then maybe help get that facilitated from the judge's perspective. But I just wanna make sure, because that's not in my job description. It's-
Are you comfortable doing it?
I'm happy doing it. I'd rather do it and not being used.
Right.
But
Let's-
I do like his ideas about additional camera and resolving this microphone issue. And then that way, we're resolving it, we're doing a lot of things together here. So I just wanna make sure you all are okay with it.
That's fine.
I think the IT thing is important to have, for sure, and I think the description's good, and I think that if we can come up with it even outside of June, which he can do it at any time, then we can go ahead and put it in then once it's a little more established and thought about, correct?
I will tell you, we do need an IT person, now whether we wanna share that with another agency or whatever happens, but it's hard because there's always piecemealing, we don't know who, you know.
Right,
Right now,
right.
Fran's kind of their IT person.
Right.
But, you know, at some point you have to get somebody else involved because some things are just issues that only an IT person.
Some are utilizing Stephen Barry.
We do him too, so it just depends on what the issues may be.
Right.
So,
But again, when I went to a city commission meeting, they had everything up there, looked really nice, it was good for the public, it told everybody, and I think it's kind of sad that we don't have that. I mean, it just seems like we're second rate, and I don't like that.
And maybe we can get a microphone at the podium too.
Yeah.
well, he's working on it.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
he's working on it,
okay,
so,
good.
you know, he's got some good ideas, I get where he's coming from, I just think there's been a lot of confusion about who should do it and who shouldn't do it, you know, so I would like to do it, if you're all okay with it, to at least get for the community to have that access.
I think it's great.
And then let the judge decide whether he wants his deputy judge to do it, or somebody else come in, if we hire an IT person, they would automatically take that on, whatever the case may be.
Sometimes I wonder if we don't need, when we use the word IT, are we referring to just the fiscal court? Or I wonder sometimes if we don't need an IT person countywide.
We do, absolutely.
Someone that can, I'm getting some nods back here from our department heads. So I think that's something that, I know money's tight and all that, but I think it's something we should seriously look into, to have somebody that could maybe coordinate all the departments, all the computer systems. So when you say the word IT person, that's who I think of. I don't think of someone just running our
Be
sounds.
responsible for IT.
Right. I think of it.
I agree.
So I think that's something we should definitely look at and be able to synchronize, if you will, all the departments.
Right, you know, and then Michelle's office, we have one, the
Right.
sheriff's office, the detention center.
Because, you know, you're right, Janet, right now, we pretty much, and you mentioned like the things that Eric did, but also there was a lot of that was above his head.
It was.
So we have,
Good, but, you know, we just needed
But
that person.
you're gonna have to, it's cheaper to contract that out.
That's what I was gonna say. I don't
It's-
think we got a full-time position.
I mean, I've got networks and crazy stuff that's way above my head. I could never hire somebody to do that stuff, and it's way, way cheaper to contract that out. And especially when you're looking at a government that has to pay 45% in retirement on top of a salary that you would pay. I mean, you'd be upwards of probably 200 and some grand in total cost to the county by doing that.
Actually, you would have to partner with other agencies, somebody, you know, whether, that, because it would be too costly.
I kind of lump this next one all together.
Okay?
In fire department descriptions, there are different places and they're worded different and they say different things. If we could make one statement for when they respond to a fire. I mean, it just says, respond to a fire, that there's 3 or 4 different wordings or 3 or 4 different places. If we could make those consistent. I know some says first responders and some says other things throughout there. It says fight fires and responds to major fires. If we could just make sure that all those job descriptions, as they all respond, if we could just make those consistent, maybe you and the chief could get together on that. It would make it easier for me to understand. And then, let's see, this one the chief may have to explain if I can find it. Oh, minimum requirements, those were all changed, and it gave some things like Leadership 3 or NIMS 800 or ICS. And they were in there before, but can someone just kind of update me as to what all those mean?
Would you like that now, sir?
If you can just get it to me, that way for my own, because I really don't know.
It's really simple. The requirements for those positions change over the years. In the past years, we had those requirements that are no longer even recognized.
Okay.
So we updated them to current status.
Okay, I didn't know.
It's okay.
Okay, just didn't know.
I'm just telling you.
Maybe these other guys know, but I didn't know. Let's see here. I don't have too many more, because I lumped all those together. And was this a change for EMT, sort of within 18 months? Was that already, this is underlined, it's not highlighted in red, it's just highlighted and underlined, 18 months to receive certification?
That was already a requirement. Sir.
Okay, it's just highlighted that way,
It's in
okay.
bold print because we've had
Okay.
some employees
That's kind of what I thought.
realize it was in there.
Okay. Road Department, says County Road Supervisor. I think the statute, and I don't know the statute because I can't call it to you, some of these requirements aren't applicable if if they're an engineer.
Right, as a road engineer.
If the road, he probably doesn't have to.
Supervisor or a road engineer.
So,
the requirements are-
so do we need to make that part of it?
I would say if you had a,
Because that's a statute.
right, I don't know, I would say, because if you wanted to hire a road engineer, you would have to just do a different type of.
So this supervisor wouldn't be applicable if we hired a licensed engineer. Okay. Well, maybe we could put / or hire a county road engineer for KRS, whatever.
Okay.
Would that maybe clarify that some? Because granted, we're not always going to be here, and the people who sit here next time may not be aware of all these things. I think I just got, let's see if I got one more here. I included that one. No, I think that's,
The way we've operated in the past is if we add a position, then we create the description.
I think that's all of it.
So I think that's a good process, because the job descriptions are really for an employee to know what we expect of them. So when the requirement comes with a new position, then you create those different, so if we choose to hire an IT, then you create.
I think I'm through. Thank you for bearing with me.
Okay, so, you want me to update and then bring it back to you next time, and then make the decision for the second reading?
Be great.
Okay, let's do that.
And I have one more question, and then I'm done. I'm gonna let you go. And I haven't spoken with Judge Yates about this, but I kinda want to get your approval again, if you're good with it. Although you did vote for me to update the website, and I've been trying to do that a little bit, but I'd like to expand our purpose of the website as an intranet for employees and people to be able to get documents from. That may help address some of the issues that Robert are having. You all have your own, you log in, and if there's something out there that the judge wants you to see, everybody sees it. The employees at the fire department will be able to look at their SOPs and always have it available to them. They just have to create their account, log in on, and be able to do it. Now, it's a complex process, so it's gonna take some time. But again, this is outside my job description, but I was also here when we got the website going, so I'm kind of feeling very attached to it. So I wanna make sure we utilize it, because we spend a lot of money. And there's a lot of things that we should be doing with it that we're not doing. I'd like to be able to take that on, because, you know, we don't have shared drives, we don't have secure emails, so this would help in some areas.
That's great.
Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
Janet, one thing, you and I talked about in a sidebar, this was our opportunity to address Class 3 drugs.
Okay.
And we know that the state legislature has passed the medical marijuana laws. Tony brought it up earlier today in a conversation. I mean, we're going to be jailing people that test positive for THC that may have a card in their pocket saying that they can legally use it. We have nothing in our admin code, so January 1st, if somebody comes to work with a card and he's at the fire department or the road department, he's gonna get in a fire truck. He's gonna be out on the road responding to a call, same way with the county road department, and we have no code enforcement. We're gonna have to go along with that, and I feel like that this is our opportunity before January the 1st. We need to be taking this up, whether we do it now or we send it over to the judge and he decides whether he adds it or not in his capacity, but I think it's a mistake. And when we talked about this before, because there's a lot of, I mean, I don't know if you call it good and bad information. I mean, sometimes CAECO sends us bad information. We saw that in the past. But I reached out to CAECO, and they're trying to work with the counties and give them some examples of what to do, but it's a lot of legal language, and I don't know where to go with it myself, but I feel certain that it is a shortfall of this court if we don't do something to take some action plan against it. I mean, I just don't feel comfortable if they, just because they got that medical card, putting them in our vehicles and on our equipment and out here where they can harm the public. And I feel like we've already had one situation with that with the fire department right now where we don't have a policy and the individual's on a class 3 drug and we're kind of, you know, in a bad spot there. So, and I also want to speak up. I don't like the idea of paying our employees for their sick leave, but I also don't like the idea that they totally lose out. I feel like that we should be doing something to convert all that to PTO and eliminate the issue altogether.
And that's a complex process. We can do it. It takes time.
I know it's complex, but we owe it to the employees of this county to do something so that they don't totally lose out.
I'm open to that too, but there is a way to do it. And they won't be happy about that either, but they get used to these things. But there are processes that you can do if that's how you want to, you know, like January 1, you want to move forward and you just do PTO. You have less safeguards. Sick time, we have a little bit of, you got to kind of have to, you know, a lot of places treat sick time as just a short-term disability. We should do the same. If people aren't using it, then we're dropping the ball somewhere. It's just because they earn it doesn't mean they should take it when they get to take it. But anyway, so there's a lot of things we can do to address it. I get where you're coming from. And you want to reward your good employees who will come. But I think there's other ways to do that. And as far as the drug policy, and the county attorney certainly can speak to this much better than I can, is I've talked to other counties. Right now, they're saying we're not changing our policy. We can choose our policy, even though if it's in their system, we say we're not gonna hire you, whether you have a card or not, you don't hire. So we choose how we wanna do it, but that may evolve too, I don't know, but that's just the general consensus right now.
Well, I spoke with Rich Ornstein with CAECO, and he says that there's actually some legislature at the federal level that may take that away from the state. So he also encouraged the possibility that maybe you wait until you see whether this becomes law or not, because it could declassify, I guess, downgrade the drug. But it's a lot. I mean, there's a lot there to get your arms around, and again, you know, whether you got the right information or the wrong information, just dipping your toe into it, it almost needs somebody full-time, you know, to spend some time and engage with the appropriate people. Certainly bounce, I don't know why we keep ignoring the fact we have a county attorney and we don't run these issues through him, but, you know, allow William the opportunity to review and decide whether, you know, it's good policy. But I feel like no policy is bad policy.
Right. So we can address that, and it could be something that the judge presents later on. There's other issues we need to readdress, our family medical leave policy, our work comp policy. It's the same principle. You're gonna have to dig down, you're gonna have to get really tight with it.
Agree.
There's some things that we need to do, but it was just too lengthy to do at this point. And, so hopefully that will be on our agenda to get that corrected as soon as, we know more about it. Right now, we're good, but until then, I think we need to change it. We need to be very specific. And one last thing, I did change the exempt employee, the threshold to hourly, but I'm not changing the other employees until January, until that threshold actually is, because anything could happen before that. So that one employee has been changed to hourly. All right.
Thank you, Janet.
Anything else?
We're good. Thank you.
17B, the next item will be approval of an order of the court approving the hiring of Dakota Blevins as a full-time heavy equipment operator for the Clark County Road Department.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Magistrate Davis, second.
He seconded.
Could be a second.
Earn a second.
Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 17C is basically approving the hiring of James Woosley at the Road Department from a full-time to a part-time position.
Judge, can you actually strike that? He's retired.
He retired?
He retired, and if he
Okay.
goes back in January, we'll do a rehire.
Okay, so no action will be taken on 17C. We have, next on is 17D, approval of the first reading of the Clark County ordinance to rezone 23.7 acres from A1 to B4.
I'd like to mention to my colleagues that I'm going to be opposed to this for the reasons that Mrs. Barnes so well articulated, and Mr. Kidd and Mrs. Hess. But this is in my district. I didn't see any signage about the planning zoning meeting. I would have been there, and I'm sure others would have too. And also, the idea of doing this without a development plan, I'm opposed to that. So just wanted to put that out there, that I'd like for us all to consider that.
Would it be possible if I could address the court?
Yes, sir.
Judge, we operate under parliamentary procedure. We don't even have a motion or a second on the floor, and we're going into discussion. And that's by KRS.
Okay, so what's before you? Is there, I thought Craycraft was going to make a motion. Do we want to make a motion on that at all?
We're not voting
Right.
on this today, so no, right?
Haven't had a motion yet. Might want to make a motion?
We have no motion or second.
Okay, I'll make the motions for discussion.
Okay. Is there a second? I'll second it for discussion. So now it is on the floor for discussion. Is there any discussion?
Well, can we get input here? I have a couple questions, and maybe he can answer my questions when he gets up.
Sorry, I jumped the gun there. I should have waited for the motion before I got into discussion.
Judge, magistrates. My name is Brian Thomas. I represent Taylor Auction Company in connection with this zoning application. And I think there was some information that was not quite accurately displayed or communicated earlier. This application is for 23 acres on Mount Sterling Road. It's directly across from Likens. There is already, this was one parcel of land, 46 acres. When you leave the Veterans Parkway, it is already light industrial. So the individuals who own the property that Mr. Taylor is buying is SLM Properties. They are the ones that run KPS, Kentucky Petroleum Supply. They're the ones that own Apollo Oil. And so they could, and they have, the planning and zoning has already taken part of this property and already zoned it light industrial. So they could continue to move down and have light industrial. Mr. Taylor's not asking that. Mr. Taylor is asking for B4. Now, when this thing was, he applied on April the 2nd, there were three signs that were placed on all three parcels of land that were there. So what we're looking for, is what we're asking for is for him to be able to zone this B4. A development plan has been filed. That was one of the conditions of Ms. Bush's. She said, we'll vote to waive it, but you need to get it in before it is brought before the fiscal court. That has been done and delivered to Mr. Jeffries. So a development plan showing what this is used for. Mr. Taylor is an auctioneer. As you all know, he has about 3 to 4 auctions a year. He does one for the FFA. So this is not a situation where he's asking to put it in industrial. I know Ms. Hess indicated it was going to be industrial. This is not an industrial development. This is a B4 highway business. He's going to use it to bring, to sell farm equipment. I know that I've had items in that auction. Pastor King said earlier, he hopes that we can make decisions to allow our county to thrive. And I think the county road supervisor said we need Clark County to grow. So what we're trying to do, as it currently sits, this is designed for multifamily. So there is no city water. The only water that is available was through to the house that Ms. Hess mentioned, or Ms. Barker mentioned, was through a private water line agreement with WMU from the other side of Veterans Parkway all the way up to this gentleman's house. So there is no water, there is no sewer at this time. It's adjacent to an industrial setup. So we were trying to figure out a way to make it where it would not be intrusive on the rest of the community. There's an issue about traffic. Well, Ms. Barker indicates that everything continues to develop along Wade's Mill, but there's no business along that. And I know that when we put in the Eastern Bypass, Magistrate Craycraft, that was the thing, is we were trying to grow that end of the county. I know that Wilcox Pool, Mr. Elkins was able to get Wilcox Pools zoned, and I think that has brought some business there. And I think next to that, Mr. Wilcox has now got Red River landscaping, and so this would just be a natural development for that. All of the property on the inside of the bypass end of the county, that's industrial. So we're not asking to change the nature and character, and that's what the standard is. The standard isn't traffic. We've already been to the State Department of Transportation. They've already, Mr. Baldwin and I have already spoken with District 7. They've already indicated no problems with increasing the size of those entrances so that we don't have the problem like there is with bringing in the bulldozers. So, it's on today for a first reading and for a vote. We're just asking that if you have any questions, we'll answer it. It's not as intrusive as it was made out to be. We followed all the rules. It was a unanimous verdict or unanimous decision by the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have complied with everything that they have asked us to do. And it's not going to be something that's going to be every day. It's not going to be monthly. I mean, he does 3 to 4 of these a year. So right now, there is no lease on the property. It is owned by SLM. I know that there are a lot of trespassers on there this weekend. There were a bunch of people riding motorcycles, kids, parents just come up and decide they're going to use it to ride their motorcycles. The lease with the baseball with Little League, they were provided notice. I actually talked to Parks and Rec before this went on. Nobody from Little League objected. They've not paid the owners of the property since about 2000 for the use of this particular property. They've just taken it upon themselves to utilize it. So we're asking, we think that it is appropriate. We don't know that anybody would want to create a subdivision in there. I know Ms. Coyle was mentioned earlier. She owns the property right after the Mountain Parkway. That's zoned for interstate employment and hotels. That's what that's its future land use is already designed. And that property is actively being marketed. AAA Resources owns all but the 14 acres, which is a little piece Ms. Coyle has. That's all been up for sale and being marketed for commercial development. So if that came, that would clearly be an issue that Ms. Barker might do. And we're trying to do this properly. We're trying to make sure that we follow all the rules. I mean, for instance, Ms. Barker, she runs a candy store or a candy shop out of her property. She recently sold that to a trust and hasn't gone and gotten that redone. We're just trying to comply with everything, and that's the reason, Mr. Taylor, we made the applications, we've got our contracts, we went before Mr. Jeffries, we sent our development plan, and we just think this would be probably one of the least intrusive mechanisms, because we're not asking it to be industrial. Okay. I know if that's in your district, that's wrong address. Yes,
I had two things. I was reading these deed descriptions, and we didn't get the full information that we usually get from planning and zoning. We usually get a plat, but I couldn't take these deed descriptions and come up with 23.7 acres. Is there a plat or a drawing or?
There is not a plat. What we did is the descriptions that are outlined there talk, actually.
I went to GIS and couldn't make any sense of it either, so
So,
I couldn't tell where it began and where it ended.
well, I can may I approach you?
Sure.
So,
I'm not scared of you.
so it's this lot right here. This is a 5-acre lot.
Okay, I saw that.
And then this lot right here, and I'll show, I may have some extra.
So, and this small one up next to the pie-shaped one is the 1-acre one, and then this other is, I think this was 12 acres, and then,
Right.
and then the one said 14, but it was really 12.
This one was 14, and then they took, I'm sorry, this was 14, this was 3 of those, and it took this is what I said, this has already been zoned industrial.
Yeah, I know, I saw
They
that.
went ahead and
Right.
took it on out.
Right.
This lot,
So how far up does it go towards Veterans Parkway?
it'll be probably.
Does it go up to the curve?
No. Yes, it goes up to the curve.
Look on my phone. I've got it on my phone. I might have a better picture. Like if I still got it.
Judge, could we have Mr. Jeffries come up? Rob, could you come up for a couple questions?
Looks like if this hits, it hits right in the middle of the curve if it looks like it would.
Be right where the curve starts.
Okay.
This is the size of the sign that was posted. Again, there was 3 signs posted.
I can't see.
KRS statute requires us to put a sign on each property. There are 3 properties involved, and so one was placed on each.
Is that the same material?
Same material,
Just,
floor plan.
just to clarify a couple things, so there has now been a development plan?
The development plan was emailed to me. I have a copy of it. It has not been brought to the planning commission yet.
So the planning commission hasn't reviewed it, but have you reviewed it, or have you even had an opportunity?
I haven't reviewed it in full.
Okay. And in my understanding, and I guess this would classify as a zoning map amendment. Okay, so looking at the ordinance, all applications for zoning map amendment shall require submission and approval of both preliminary development plan and a final development plan prior to the development of property, although we know it can be waived. Preliminary development plan may be submitted in conjunction with the zoning map request, but is not required. However, a certified plat identifying the parcel to be rezoned and indicating bearings and distance with the accompanying written boundary description must be submitted with the zone map amendment request. Has a certified plat been submitted with this zone map request?
I remember, I don't have the application in front of me, so I can't say for sure whether or not there's been a legal drawing of the meets and bounds. But I do know that the deed has the meets and bounds.
So all we've got right now is the deed, not a certified plat then. Is that right?
So, Mr. Thomas submitted the ordinance to you guys.
Yeah, I see the meets and bounds description. Okay. Gotcha.
Could you tell me on this particular map where the entrance of this place would be so we can know as far as the traffic flow goes?
Yes, sir. It'll be the existing entrances that are already identified on it's the entrances that they use for, when Lycans has a overflow parking and they use those are going to be the same entrances. State is just going to allow us to widen those to 36 feet. So we're not altering or changing the character. We're still complying with the site distances that were complied with or requested by District 7.
I'm just wondering if they could put the entrances down farther to where it goes towards the Veterans Parkway, if there would be less traffic on that road if they did that.
And, you know, that's going to be a state call. That's not going to be.
Understand.
That's going to be a state call, and that's what we had, when we talked to Robert at District 7, he had indicated that he looked at the map and said there are 2 existing entrances that have already been approved, and so they would just increase those. And I think one of those is directly across the entrance to Lycans. So the goal was to try to keep, that way you have if you've got somebody coming out Lycans and somebody coming out of this, that they would at least be able to see each other. We would have a big markup.
Now, you mentioned that this is only going to be used 3 to 4 times a year as far as for auction goes, but there's constantly stuff coming up and down the road being brought into the property, correct?
think it's what do you do? You said 2 weeks before? 10 days prior, they've got to be brought in, so. So if everybody brought it in for four sales.
40 days a year. And then otherwise it'll be sitting vacant?
Yes, sir. I mean, he may have equipment on there.
No, I understand. No, I get that part.
Not gonna be utilized.
Will all this be hard surfaced, blacktop, concrete?
Some of it will be, I don't think any of it's gonna be blacktop, because it's just, there'll be gravel, and then there'll be some grass areas as well. I don't think you're gonna gravel it all, or you're gonna try to leave the entrance or the middle section of grass.
We're gonna do just some gravel driveways and some nice fence and a building. It's gonna be we're not gonna go out there and make a mess. I want it to be something that everybody in the county can be proud of and utilize as well.
I know you're not obligated, but could it still be used for overflow parking or?
I was just showing Magistrate Davis the copy of the plat, pulled up the staff report on my phone, and so, yes, the planning commission reviewed the plat for the property submitted by Bob Baldwin. If you want to get past my phone around, if you like to see.
And in regard to Magistrate Craycraft's question, I actually spoke with Alan Curtis last week regarding the overflow parking, and that is not going to be an issue into the future. You know, like I say, the last thing I want to do here is come in and take something away from the community when really all we're trying to do is build it. So, you know, we have no issue with, at a later date upon closing, speaking with officials, with Parks and Recreation or the county and coming to terms with something that would benefit everyone.
And it wouldn't eventually sometime be charge parking, it would be actually complimentary parking as an olive branch to the community?
I have no intentions of that.
Rob, is this in the growth zone? We've talked about these maps before, and it's been a contentious portion. I see in here that you mentioned the comprehensive plan, so is it in those? I couldn't come up with my map.
So there's what we commonly call the urban planning boundary, or urban growth boundary.
I happen to have that.
Okay.
So, and I apologize I didn't have it. So the area in question is this little bitty triangle. So you can see this is all light industrial. This is all community development. This is business and homes. And this is all that interstate. So this is kind of like the little triangle of bastion of hope is left, surrounded by industrial and business. And so that is the reason that we thought if we made it business, then there wouldn't be industrial directly across from Lycans. There wouldn't be industrial across from the ag, and there wouldn't be industrial as you cross over. So that's the reason we had requested. But yeah, it's part of the urban use, but it's kind of the only little thing out there.
So why did we mention that in our plan then, if it really is kind of part of the comprehensive plan?
This is the urban planning boundary, it's that hard border, that's the urban planning boundary. Now, what was mentioned in the motion, it was mentioned that the existing land use is not appropriate as a property.
I think I've seen it, yeah, I think I've seen it, yeah, I think I've seen it.
Is close proximity to highway business. It also talked about, because on the comprehensive plan is anticipated for single-family residential. And so I believe in the motion they mentioned not having utilities to the area.
There's no city water or sewer to that particular property.
Saw it earlier.
Put in a motion.
And if I could add one more thing, if you see the plan that was drawn by Baldwin, you'll see what we're gonna utilize on this property out of the entire property is roughly about 4 acres. The rest of it will remain unchanged and just be used for parking in the events that we have an auction. So, you know, it's not like we're gonna go out there and gravel the whole thing and make a big deal. Like I say, it's just gonna be a, you know, small percentage of that property that will be changed, and quite frankly, a lot of it gonna be cleaned up on the upper end. It's kind of growed up in trees.
And you're gonna build a building?
If we get approved.
And what are you gonna do for water and sewer?
Well, we're gonna have to do septic and a cistern. That's just the only options we got unless we, do the same thing that Mr. Wasson did when he, lived in that residence, and he has a meter base that's actually across the creek. And it was quite a long stretch on a water line, going to East Clark County Water, but, that's our plans for now, is just kinda get by like we did.
Do the hotels not have,
They do.
hotels gotta have sewer, right?
Yeah, hotel has
And it
sewer.
borders the property.
No, you've got Apollo Oil, KPS, State Road Department.
In between them.
And then across that is still that's all light industrial for SLM. But yeah, it doesn't cross, it just comes and stops.
I've spoken with WMU in the past about developing property in that area. We had a meeting with the developer for property across the street near Likens, and they represent for WMU said they'd have to, connect to the same sewer that Royal Oaks is connected to, and so it'd have to flow from it, and it's very costly to get there. But the motion I was referencing was the one made for the development plan that said no longer practical for single-family residential for the area. There is no water sewer services, and it mentioned traffic issues as well as industrial zoning surrounding the area. So, the conference plan was referenced during the meeting, and that's where they found all these findings, where the conference plan identifies it for single family, but the planning commission found that it was more appropriately used for B4 at the meeting.
One question about that. It says, and additionally, there have been major changes. Of course, we all know you're not supposed to parrot the statute, and those changes weren't listed. So, you might as well throw that statement out if they're not listed.
And as I read it, Rob, that in waiving the development plan requirement according to the ordinance that I read from earlier, they have to also be a finding that there'll be minimal impact to the neighborhood. Was there any such finding on that as far as the neighborhood goes, or is it just not even mentioned?
The only thing I can reference is the minutes, and so.
I didn't see anything in the minutes.
What was referenced in the minutes about waiving the development plan is, Ms. Bush made the motion to approve request to waive the development plan for the properties located at 1370, 1500, and 1850 Mount Sterling Road. Due to the following findings of fact, no longer practical for the single-family residential for the area. There are no water sewer services, traffic issues, US 60, industrial zoning surrounding the area. After a second motion by Mr. Belford, the motion passed.
And you said the traffic was from the state, mentioned that? It was their findings that said that, it wasn't just her
It
opinion?
didn't come from the state, no. It was just findings that was discussed at the meeting.
Okay, so it wasn't done by any experts or anything like that, it was just people's personal opinions?
I don't believe it, yeah, I believe it's just opinions that were stated.
Can I ask for clarification? I know I've had my speech, but I needed to know PDA office is not correct, or if what they have is correct. I just needed a clarification on something.
There's mailing addresses that we get from PBA, so every application that's submitted to the planning commission that involves a public hearing, the applicant's required to go to the PBA to get the up-to-date mailing addresses, so that when we mail out notifications, that the up-to-date mailing addresses are used, and so that PBA list was given with the application. Is that what you're referencing?
I just wanted to clarify that the 1.51 acres that is included in this 23, they were asking for the zone change on, was that not owned by you already?
It is, but it's part of the zoning change to change because it was, that particular piece of property just undeveloped. The house which has been sold has already been foreclosed on and is now owned by Kentucky Housing. So that may be another piece of property that we're looking at potentially acquiring.
The 1.51 is under Taylor Auto Sales.
Auction company, not auto sales, auction company. The same applicant that we have here today.
The PDA house that said auto sales.
Oh, no. No, he's not selling the
It's
car.
already in their name, right?
Pardon?
And then the other two pieces is owned by SML.
SLN, yes ma'am. We have a contract that authorizes us to act on their behalf, and that is part of the condition of the contract for sale.
And do they not own the other 45 acres?
They do light industrial, yes ma'am.
Abrams Parkway.
23 acres is zone industrial, yes ma'am.
Okay, but up on Veterans Parkway, the corner, they own that also.
It's part of the 46 acres of which this is part of that.
Okay. The other thing, there is a fire hydrant out there, and we keep saying there's no water.
That's a discussion you can have with WMU. I don't know if that means that the same utilities for residential would be under the ground there, or if it's just a pipeline for the hydrant. I'm not an expert when it comes to.
Okay.
He's checking right now.
Yeah, that's the water main that feeds Lightning Park. Every so many hundreds of feet, you have to have a fire hydrant. So that WMU's water line out of that main comes into feed Lightning Park. That's where that fire hydrant was put at.
So WMU has a line all the way to Liggins Park.
Yes.
So it's not that we don't have water, we don't have a main.
I would imagine sewer is the issue.
All I know is that what Mr. Walson told me, Mr. Walson said, there was no water, I had to pay for a line, and there's an easement that runs through this property to access the other.
And I may be mistaken, but I think that was through Fiscal County, not WMU. I've got to be wrong.
So, just so I understand, you're taking the word of somebody that owned the property versus doing the due diligence when you're purchasing the property to find out if you can get water or not.
No, actually, we did the due diligence, and we did not see where WMU, we had actually called WMU to see if they had a water line out there, and they indicated they did not. So we were questioning, how did this guy get water? Now, and there probably is an easement, Mr. Constantopoulos, I just don't have it in this particular, file, which is just the zoning issue.
You think it's East County?
I don't have the title. File.
So Rob, when you, at the planning and zoning, issued a statement that it had no water and sewer, what was your due diligence that you did to establish that it had no water or sewer?
We take the information that was presented at the public hearing. Like I said, I've had meetings in the past about previous applications, one just across the street. And we had Duke from WMU at that meeting with the developer, and he told us that when it came to water and sewer, we had to pipe it from Royal Oaks. And so that was within the last year that I had that meeting with them. So, but, you know, when it comes to this application, whatever information they received from WMU is what we took.
Another question I had is the property itself, when we're only using it 4 times a year, will you be keeping it up so it's not an eyesore? Or we got weeds growing and Johnson grass and everything else growing through there, and that'll be regularly kept up?
Absolutely.
So it looks nice. And
This is my business, and, well, I hope for it to be my business, and I want that to be a reflection of how we do business and of myself, so you won't have to worry about how it's gonna look.
perfect, thank you.
Assuming we have a first reading today, is it possible to attach that plat prior to the second reading? Because I mean, these jobs, it makes more sense with the plat.
Does the business plan lay out exactly, I know what you're planning to do and I support it, but does it lay out what he's gonna do? Buildings and
The development plan identifies
how
the buildings, the fences, the entrances, the gravels, the drive-throughs, all of that is on the development plan that has been presented to Mr. Jeffries.
Well, I mean, I'll just speak, I mean, I support growth. I want to see things happen in our county. It's within the boundary. But one thing that I don't like about it, in fairness, is that didn't accompany the application, and the residents out there that have a problem with it, maybe some of them wouldn't have a problem with it if they could see the development plan. I almost feel like this needs to be tabled. I don't know what the appropriate action is, but it almost needs to be sent back to planning and zoning. Let the people see what it is. I mean, I would think that, some of the individuals come from a rural area, that they could find some support. Now, that's just me talking out loud. And it just seems like that we went off, like the water, for instance. Obviously there's water. So the facts aren't there, and some of the documents, maybe we shouldn't have overlooked that. Because I did have people reach out to me. I had people calling me as well. And again, I want to see Mr. Taylor do it. I support his business. He's a good young man, and I believe it'll be an asset for our community, but I don't like the process we've been through. These people are bringing legitimate concerns to this court, and we shouldn't deny them of their rights to know what's going on next to their properties.
And Mr. President, we made every effort to comply with the statute. We even went went so far as to notify the people on the other side of the interstate, which is not required, but we went ahead and did that because they actually touched.
Yeah, I'm not doubting that, but, I mean, there's some inconsistencies, you gotta admit that. And all I'm saying is maybe I don't know. If you guys wanna take it up, we'll take a vote on it.
I can withdraw my motion and offer a motion to table.
If the court wanted to if the court wanted the planning commission to review it with the development plan available to the public, I'd support that.
Well, I'll second his motion he just made.
Can I just ask one other question before we move from that aspect? I know that they're talking about traffic issue, all right? When it's 4 times a year that this is gonna happen, it's only gotta be in 10 days ahead of time. How's that affecting people all the way to 64 going up Mount Sterling Road?
It doesn't, I mean.
That's what I'm not understanding. I mean, I know at times it would, just like if we had a festival it would, I get it. But it's not an everyday thing, so that's why I'm having trouble understanding
They're
that.
4.5 miles away. Mrs. Parker's 4.5 miles away from this, and we're not, Mr. Taylor has a start time and a finish time. He has a start time and a finish time for dropping off equipment. So I don't know that it would, and that's why I'm perplexed as to why traffic is an issue.
Will he be putting signs on the road ahead of time that this is happening during these times and these times so people can find an alternative route without getting stuck in traffic?
Absolutely, that's what he does. That's what he does when he uses the one on Washington Street. He was renting the one on Washington and Broadway, which is a even worse location because it's 2 city streets. He put signs up to let them know that the auction was coming. It tells the date, it tells the time. He had them on each road frontage. He did the same thing when it was at the old Harrah building.
Okay. That answered my question.
Outside the right of way, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
And the motion is to.
And the
Table it,
motion
go in
is
front of you guys,
to
look at it with the-
table pending planning, going back to planning and zoning.
For the review of the development plan?
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
You might put approval of, and review of the final plat too. Because that would have to be part of it, I would think.
It was in the staff report.
Was it? Okay.
Flat was, yes.
Okay, thank you.
But we can bring that back.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
I'll make that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. First reading, this will be a 17E, the first reading of an ordinance approving the fiscal year 2025 budget amendment, the CDBG grant closeout. I think that, again, money's coming in, it's just passing through to close out the CBDG grant that was
Motion to
used
approve.
on Taylor Avenue.
Second. I want a discussion. So we're doing a budget amendment on our budget we just did for this year.
Mm-hmm.
If the revenues come in, we can create a line item without having to go and take the expense out and do the actual show the revenue at a future basis, so we don't have to advertise and spend all the money for one line item for $10,000.
And it doesn't have to go back and be looked at by the state to determine if it's,
Because
So we're just adjusting this revenue dollars, all we're doing.
Did we have $10,000 in revenue that came in?
We will have $10,000 in revenue coming in.
Okay, when that comes in, Mary can create another line item to show the revenue, and then we can immediately transfer appropriations from another line item to create the CDBG expenditure. So with 10 and 10, so you got it in the revenue, you got it in the expenses. And then at a later time because we'll probably end up doing a budget amendment.
You
We always
do this part of it then.
Then we can do this part of it then, and then that way it's
We
all
can do the
grouped
first
together,
part.
and we don't have to
We can
pay
do the
all
first part, we can wait,
advertising.
when we do another, you're saying we can wait and do this part later, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Does that make sense, Miss Mary? I can't see you back here. Oh, there you are.
I think you're correct in that.
You have a question?
I thought about that, but I guess I was also thinking about where are we gonna take the $10,000 from on the appropriation side when we have to issue that, a CDBG check?
I mean, we can find,
I don't know, that's a good question.
Cause it's tight, I mean, the budget is tight.
That's a good
why
question.
We had talked, Mary and Judge Yates and I had talked, and we thought this may be the cleanest way to do that too, since this was closing out the grant. we already have a revenue line for CDBG, but there's nothing in this year's budget for that. There's already an expenditure line for CDBG, but there's no money in appropriations for that. So that's why we're presenting this, because we felt like there was no place in the budget to take $10,000 from as a budget transfer.
I mean, we got, I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I just hate to pay all that money and go through all the budget movement for one $10,000 deal. We're literally 2 weeks into the fiscal year. But
We were hoping this money would come through in June, and I was in constant communication with a Bluegrass Ad, and because of DLG being so short-staffed and so far behind, they could not get it done in June.
we can have the first reading, and then if we can figure out where to take the 10,000 from, we can
Not have the second?
not have the second.
You both got good points. I can't argue with either one of them.
What other expense are you thinking we may have, Daniel, for this budget? Because the only thing I'm aware of is just a short public notice, which is not very much money.
It just seems like we always receive some type of grant that we're not expecting, or we receive some additional revenue, and so we.
You mean in the future?
In the future, and so we always do a budget. I don't think there's been a year we haven't done a budget.
We've always done at least sometimes
Done a
two.
budget amendment, but we try to group them all together because we have to do all the advertisement requirements. And I hate to do one here and then, 2 months from now, we get some additional revenue coming in and we do one there. If we just group them together, it just saves the county money.
Well, let's go ahead and have the first reading. If we need to make an amendment, we can.
Works for me.
That's my thought.
Works for me.
So what is before us is still the first reading of the budget amendment.
Just need to vote.
Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion, first reading passes.
May I clarify something? Do you still want us, between now and the next court meeting, to try to find 10,000 in appropriations to transfer?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can all look
please,
at it. We
please.
can all look at it together and see if we agree, yeah. That works for me.
Uh, 17F is approval of fiscal court approving the chief deputy coroner position and salaries. Those was actually tabled last time. And the position was approved, but the salary rate was tabled, I believe. So what's before you now, if you'd like to speak to this, Neil?
We just need to take action on it.
You just need to take action.
We just need to
Okay.
take action.
Okay.
Motion to remove from the table and approve.
Okay, we have a, I'll
Second.
second.
Okay, Judge seconds.
So it is off the table and now open for another vote. Do we want to, so what you have before, okay, wait a minute. I'm
A
sorry.
motion was to remove from the table and approve.
Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so are we approving the salary increases?
Oh, that was for chief deputy, yeah.
Just to make sure we understand, that's
17F.
That was for chief deputy.
17F, that's the chief deputy.
We gotta vote on 17G.
Okay. So we've taken it from the table and you wanted to approve that?
My motion.
Okay.
That was his motion, right?
Yeah, that's what you said.
Okay, okay. Okay. Next item is G, is the approving a salary increase for the deputy coroner position. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Magistrate Miller, is there a second? I'll second it for discussion. Is there any discussion on that? So we have a first and second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item H is hiring of Christian Manning to fill an open position for a full-time firefighter.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question, maybe, Chief, since we have 4 of these, correct, 4 hires?
No, sir, we do not. We took one off the table.
Which one'd you take off?
The last
Very
one.
last one. Okay.
Okay. Okay,
Sky blue,
Okay, taking K off, okay. This brings you to how many firefighters?
24, sir.
And how many, is that full? Are you, that make you full?
No, sir.
Okay. How many more will you have?
We'll have at least 3 more.
We had at least two retirements, haven't we?
Okay.
At 5.
5 retirements, so
5.
there you go.
And this is not increasing positions, these are filling positions that we
Filling
have.
positions,
Yeah.
not new
Yeah.
positions.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
so we have a motion and a second to approve the hiring of Christian Manning. Is there any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. 17I will be approving the hiring of Patrick Boykin.
Motion approved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 17K, there will be no action taken on that. We're going to remove
No.
that from the,
We're looking at
Skip
J.
17J.
J. J.
D. Filippo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
D. Filippo.
I'm sorry, never mind. Okay.
What's the chances of that?
17J is to approve the hiring as a full-time firefighter of Ty,
D. Filippo.
D. Filippo.
okay.
D. Filippo.
Lupo. Is there
So
a mo-
moved.
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now 17K, there'll be no action taken. Next item on the agenda is magistrate comments.
I don't have anything.
Magistrate Pasley,
I don't have anything.
Magistrate Daniel.
Yeah, I've just got one thing. I know at the last meeting, we had talked a little bit about it in regards to the comprehensive plan. I know that the city commission at their last meeting had, I guess, re-voted, or they had voted to amend what they originally approved. So what the city voted for was to accept all the recommendations or accept all the changes that the county made, except for on number 7, we had 7D, we had stripped out the verbiage that said it was, study of government, city and county merger of government. And so they had struck that and wanted to consider merger of city and county services. Am I correct on that, Robert? And so I'd emailed him and asked him about that, and I thought that this was gonna be on the agenda. It should have been. I know it was in the paper, being discussed, that it was gonna be discussed at this meeting, and I know it's kind of a urgent situation in regards to, what the planning commission was requesting from both bodies. So, in an effort to compromise with the city commission and based on the action took in their last city commission meeting, I'll make the following motion to accept the suggested change, objective 7D, adding the verbiage back into what the fiscal court approved, goals and objectives that reads as follow. Evaluate the benefits and feasibility of merging city and county services, ways to increase transparency in government spending and budgeting, and opportunities to increase public participation. So I would offer that up as a motion, so what we are getting is all those changes, and they wanted to implement that in. That does not bind this fiscal court for any studies or anything of that nature. It doesn't bind us from having to merge it. It's a goals and objectives, and I think that, we can live with the compromise in regards to that. So I wanted to offer that as a motion, see if there's a second, then we can have some discussion.
I'll make a second on that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Well, I agree in spirit, Magistrate Constables, with your motion, and certainly the idea of having a unified set of goals and objectives. I think although we don't have to, and there's nothing in the statute that requires us to, I think it's a good look for our community. And I appreciate the city's willingness to come up with a compromise agreement. I wasn't part of that meeting. Evidently, they met a couple of weeks ago, from what I've heard, and came up with this proposal. So it is encouraging, and I think you're right. It does not bind us to merge any government services or to even study a merger. And I've already expressed my view on the idea of merging the fire departments, and the reason why I think it's good to have a separate, distinct county department. But for the purposes of having a unified plan, I can appreciate that. I think it's a better look. However, I would not offer any changes to the comprehensive plan goals as it's been submitted to us by the city, so I want to clarify that. But for this court, for this body, would make me feel better is if we approve this to add a caveat. I guess it would be an amendment, maybe to your motion. I don't know how, I think that would be appropriate, that before any such study or evaluation takes place, at least where the county's participating, that I think two things need to happen. First thing is, you might say it's not related, but I think in a way it is. I think we need to have finally a permanent agreement between the county and the city on revenue sharing. Now, we've got one or two agreements, I think, that are going to be expiring here in the short term. We have yet to come up with any kind of agreement with the city on that. And I think, it's critical that we establish what our revenue stream is going to look like over the next several years. So that would be, for any study to take place, for me to agree to that. I'll agree to putting it in the goals and objectives, but just to get on the record so that we're not beating a dead horse every few months over whether or not we're going to have a study to merge this or that or whatever. I would want to see a permanent agreement between the county and city on revenue sharing. And I asked the payroll tax. And then secondly, we've discussed this in previous meetings, and I think we've heard from a lot of people in the southern end of the county, and way out of the city limits, is they like to see a small satellite fire station at some point down there, which, we're hopefully going to be moving on purchasing the one on Tierney, but I think that would complete, once we get that done, that would complete a full range of coverage for the county, for our rural people. So that would be the two things. I'm not looking to change anything more in the goals and objectives. I'm okay with accepting that, but I would offer that as an amendment for this court before we were to engage in any kind of study of merging any kind of services, not just fire, but anything. Let's get those two things out of the way. A rural fire department in southern Clark County and a final agreement on revenue sharing with the city.
I don't have a problem with the amendment. I don't want to, can we just follow it up? Can we vote on this motion and then turn around? Because I support that motion. I'm the same degree. I think just to keep it separated, because I don't want to think that there's any changes to what, because the city's already approved theirs. Once we approve this, I think that takes care of everything on your all's end. And then we can follow it up with, this is where we're standing regarding 7D.
And Rob, just to clarify, their offer is to accept all of our red line revisions, changes, whatever, deletions, additions, except for that one on evaluating.
Correct. And
Okay.
As I don't want to mess with
Just Daniel.
As Daniel K stated, the sentence he read concerning merging city and county services is what the city adopt, or what they adopt.
But all of our other revisions, they're ready to.
They're ready to adopt.
We had left in ways to increase transparency in government spending and budgeting, and opportunities to increase public participation. We had that portion in there. The only thing that we had struck was evaluate the benefits and feasibility of merging city-county government. And so they struck government and put in services.
Gotcha.
So, like you said, the city is basically at the last city commission meeting, they accepted all your red line. They just wanted to keep the language in 7D, but change government to services.
I understand. No, that's.
I guess where I'm a little confused is I know that when we made a lot of changes, we got beat up pretty good for not what the city wanted and not what the county wanted and not what the people that were part of the study wanted and not what the general population wanted. Now all of a sudden everything's fine. So I'm having a little tough time with that one. I'm okay with what's happening because I think the revisions we made were good, but I don't understand how things can shift so quickly and all of a sudden everything's okay.
Well, I think everybody we're trying to come up with a livable compromise to it. I know that from my aspect, there's always been a sense to compromise. I mean, as many of you know that, I met with the city manager and the mayor in regards to compromise, because I knew that there was going to be difference of opinions, and we tried to work out a compromise and do, it all fall back on the fire study. Let's just be open and transparent about it. And when that got put on the agenda, I told both of them if it got put back on the agenda that it wasn't going to help us negotiating and coming up with something that we both agreed upon. And ultimately, when that was brought up, that it just created more hard feelings. Our response back to me was there's no reason to continue meeting any longer. So it's not that we were never wanting to come up with a compromise. It's just, unfortunately things happen and sometimes people walk away from the table. And when that happens, sometimes you just need some time and we get back to where we are now. So I think this is a good compromise. I like it followed up with the secondary motion, so we do take the stance of where we do feel about doing this, so we don't have to keep being beat over and over saying, let's do this until we have those things in. I agree with that 100%. So I'm just hopefully get this back to the planning and zoning, so that way they can conduct. Like I said, I don't think that there's any problems with having two. The law allows it, but I do agree that I think it's best to have one plan where it's by the city and county, and let's get it done and put this behind us, and then move forward.
The only thing I totally agree. The only thing I'd add, Rob, is going forward. I know in 2 or 3 years we'll be starting the whole comprehensive plan process back and appointing a committee and all that. And I think we need to have some serious discussion on reimagining that whole process because, first of all, in my opinion, I think the committee was way too big. It was unwieldy. There were too many people on it. It was a cacophony of opinions and special interest groups that got involved. And at one point, I feel like it was very much railroaded. And I don't think that's your fault. I don't think it's a consultant's fault. But I just think it was the way this thing was structured. And I think that we probably, as a body, and maybe the city commission as well, we need to set forth kind of our thoughts to the next committee as to what our expectations are. Because even though I know they come up with it, we've got to have something that we can pass, which we didn't at the time. So I just
And what I think, I don't want to take much time to speak on it, what I think I would help to let the next time, so these goals and objectives can originate from both governing bodies, even prior, so I think it would be best for both governing bodies to kind of put ink on paper to present to the committee at the very beginning, saying these are the thoughts, these are the things that we think can be focused on.
I agree.
And just kind of give that to the committee at the beginning.
It's a good idea.
And that will help kind of steer the ship a little bit. And of course, during public comment, we're going to probably hear other things, which is good, and we should be able to maybe incorporate those things into the goals and objectives as well. But I think this is just, here's a guide that we give you at the very beginning, just to hear, because you guys hear everything that's going on in your different districts in your county. So I think that would be good for the committee to have at the very beginning.
Isn't that what we pay the facilitator for, to kind of bring it all together?
Well, you do, but the problem is when you've got any committee with 20-some odd people on it, and some attending and some not, and some saying they didn't get notice of meetings, which I heard from one or two different committee, I mean, whatever the case may be, emailing, it can become an unwieldy process. I mean, I went to a couple of those meetings, which, for lack of a better word, I think just sort of went off the rails, and it's gotta be a different process, I think, next time.
And there was such a hot topic issue with solar going on at the time that inflamed things. I think that's been put to rest. But
So what was the general consensus of the committee itself with the changes and the compromises that are being made? Are they okay with that, or?
So, I mean, we haven't had a committee meeting since the goals and objectives were forwarded to you guys. So, I mean, the committee members themselves haven't seen the changes unless they've been, listening in to the fiscal court meetings or planning commission meetings. One idea was to, once this is all compiled and all finalized, then we can have the committee members together and just show them the final document. And then I'm sure that if we do that, I mean, there's going to be some happy people, there's going to be some upset people. But I think and the reasons why we're entertaining this today is like Dan O'Kay was saying, just kind of try to meet in the middle as best we can, and have a solid comprehensive plan so that one of the biggest concerns is right now we're seeing a lot of zoning map amendments, we're seeing a lot of applications brought before the planning commission, and the planning commission has had a great record so far. I've been here for about 8 years, and the amount of things that have been challenged within the planning commission, it hasn't been much. I don't think we've been to a court case since. I think before I got here, when it concerned Allen Company, and so we want to keep that record going. Bobby Golub's a great attorney for the planning commission. Basically, having that solid goals and objectives in the comprehensive plan will reduce the amount of challenges that the planning commission might see, and so we want to keep that record going. And that's what the point of trying to come together, meet in the middle as best as we can.
Just for the record, I just want to say that I think it's a good idea that we've come together and as a group body, both city and county. I know that there's a narrative that's put out there that we seem to have a tendency to want to stonewall and don't want to get along as the county, and I don't agree with that, being on this body now almost 2 years. But hopefully this will kind of put to rest that a little bit, and people can kind of understand that we're trying to do that.
And one final thing, because it was kind of brought up in the meeting in regards to the letter that I presented to you all. We did not know that there was any meeting at the time that letter, and that was to direct a response, because the council, I think, or the Council for Planning and Zoning wanted us to be in a public, come together in a joint meeting. Anybody with any common sense knows that it's not good to have 14 people in a room having a public debate about that, and even the mayor said that she was dead set against of having both bodies debate. That's what that letter specifically was saying is that, hey, it's done with our issue, but finding out the information, because we had no idea that there was another meeting going on and that this had all come into play. So with that, I think we need to vote on this motion, and then I'll give the floor to Magistrate Davis for a supplement motion.
Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Would you want to make an amendment?
I did, and it'll be a separate motion. Just to clarify, it's not an amendment, but just to reiterate what I said earlier, I appreciate Daniel bringing this to our attention and making the motion, but, I think we've discussed the concerns that I brought up a few minutes ago, so I would make the motion that now having adopted those revised goals and objectives, the issue of a study of merging services may come up at some point, inevitably it will, but my motion would be that the county engage in no evaluation or study of any merger of government services until two things have happened. The first being that the county and city agree to and enter into a permanent revenue sharing agreement, which again we have not. And then B would be the construction and opening of a satellite fire station in southern Clark County. And I'm not going to specify as to where, but somewhere in the vicinity of southern Clark County, so that Clark County will have 4 functioning fire stations to cover the rural part of our community. Again, I've
I'll
already
second
belabored
that.
those, so.
That's why I popped it up.
I second that motion.
We already have a statement.
Oh, we did? Okay, sorry.
Magistrate Davis.
It's open for discussion, right? The only concern that I have, and again, you can help me out with this, I know that we tried talking about revenue sharing. You did a lot of work on that, and you felt that you had kind of got to the point where it was just like a brick wall. You weren't making anywhere on that. You know, coming up to that that agreement's going to be challenging, I would say, to be the least. And then also, when we have, in joint ventures that we've worked with the city before, IDA, these kind of things, you know, we've had issues with just even trying to get someone to be able to either sit in closed session and or on the board of the IDA as an example, but we're a junior member, so we didn't carry them enough weight. And I'm just always concerned in the future when we get together for these kind of things, are we going to be running into those same obstacles, and how do we avoid that if going forward?
Well, I think if you're asking me that question, I think that we're basically saying that we're not gonna be evaluating any of those services until we have some of these key things in place, is the way I take your motion, Magistrate
Exactly.
Davis. I mean, I think we can all agree that, you know, some partnerships haven't worked greater than others. We've had some that's worked good, but I think in this situation, you know, we're just publicly stating that, you know, we need to have a few things done before we consider even evaluating those.
That's fine.
Moving forward.
I just wanted to voice those concerns because I didn't want to get to the point where we had to say it later and say, oh, you never said that before.
Well, I'd like to speak up on the portion about the fire study. I'd like to encourage, I'm not on the fire committee, and Chief does a good job, but I would like to see personally, whether it's a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, moving forward with some goals and objectives of how we attain getting the bulk of the population in the county under that 10-minute response time. That was highlighted in the presentation, and it was good for us to see. I know a lot of that came from the 2017 study that was done, if not all of it. But since 2017, you know, we're in the process of this new fire department, which is picking up some people, as I understand, and shortening some of those response times. But then we have the other 14,000 people that are still over a 10-minute response time. One of our fire departments is in the city, limiting us in that 10-minute response time to about a 120-degree angle of measurement because of where it sits. And building upon this, I mean, if, you know, throwing something out there, if we did something at Forest Grove where we got 360 degrees of measurement in that 10-minute, and I'd also like to see something in our long-term goal and objective of trying to get the other one on the one on Barnes Drive outside of that ring as well. It limits us to where we can reach, and with the bypass set up the way that it is, and especially if it got finished, it would be huge, the amount of people that could be touched. And then if we could get some buy-in on our water system on that side of the county like we do on the western portion, where we could get, you know, I think there's 28 fire hydrants in the western part, and if we could get those same amount of fire hydrants, not only would it affect protection, but it also affect all of us' insurance. Because one of the first questions I ask is, you know, how far are you from the fire station and how far are you from a fire hydrant? So I think, you know, in defense of the city trying to annex our fire department and some of the negative comments that was, you know, made during all this about the Trap Fire Station, which is, you know, 20 minutes from the closest. And I mean, I was really stricken that the city had no comprehension of what we go through in the county. If you're on 4 Mile, Lily's Ferry Road, or Kidville, and you pull a fire alarm and you're waiting 30 minutes while you watch your house burn down, you know, before somebody shows up. And I have been on the recipient of the trap. I mean, within 3 to 5 minutes, you know, they were there and working. Not just there and working. And if we could get these fire stations moved in the county where I feel like they belong, we would all have the service, we would all gain the benefit. And I feel like, you know, without a goal and an objective, which probably needs to come out of like the fire department committee or something, that'd be a recommendation to this court. We have no North Star, no bearing of where we're going. I think most of us in this room probably agree that we need it. And it's a good goal, but I'd very much like to see a plan of something.
Maybe Magistrate Pasley, that's something we could start working on in the fire committee, not coming up with a 3, 4, or 5-year plan, including but not just limited to another satellite station, because there's a lot of planning that goes into this, and I think that's an excellent idea.
We ready to vote on the motion?
No, I got a comment. Nobody else does. I got no problem with revenue sharing. It's not likely to happen from what I hear, but as far as another satellite station in southern Clark County, you all have already made that decision by voting to purchase this piece of property. You ignored that last study. It took 7 years to do anything, and then you went against it. So as far as, you know, we most likely, none of us will even be sitting here when we even get to talking about that point. So for that reason, I'm going to vote against that motion. And as far as fire department input, they did have input on the previous plans, so they've had plenty of input in the past, and again, that went ignored, so I'll vote no.
Just to be clear, can you repeat your motion one more time?
The motion was that the county would not participate in any study or evaluation of a merger of governmental services until 2 things have taken place. The number 1 was a agreement is entered into by the city and county on permanent revenue sharing. And then the second one was the construction and opening of a satellite fire station in southern Clark County, somewhere in southern Clark County. That was the motion.
Any further discussion?
I just wanted a clarification on that. I know Robert mentioned that we ignored the fire study and put one a different place, and we should have put one out there, et cetera, and this is when we're discussing. But I thought that when 2 left, we just relocated 2, and we hadn't even talked about a 3 yet. So 3 is the one that needs to go out on the southern county. We just moved 2 to a different location in a similar area to, is that not correct?
That's not the way I look at it.
Well, that's what the fire study appeared to be. Well, but 4, but I'm just saying, it would have been, 2 just relocated. It wasn't like that one that was going to be number 4 on the south side that they recommended was being replaced by the one we just moved. Is that correct? Okay, that's what I thought. I just want to make sure that we knew that we weren't ignoring that or trying to go around that. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
1 no. Motion passes.
Judge, I had a couple other comments real quick while I've got the floor, if that's okay, since we're in magistrate comments. A couple things. The Parks and Rec, Judge, I'm sorry that Mr. Rogers, who was here in public comment, isn't with us, but I understand it's a long meeting. But he had appeared in the city commission meeting, I guess it was last week, and I happened to be watching that meeting and had a couple questions for the city commission. And one was regarding the College Park gym, and there was some discussion there while he was at the podium about the so-called Dectron. And one of the commissioners made the comment that the city had been trying to get it financed, either replace it or repair it, and that the quote was, the county put its foot down. First of all, that's not accurate. I know Magistrate Constantopoulos is on the Parks and Rec Board representing the county, and I think he's mentioned it maybe at least once to us, but to my knowledge, or at least my recollection, I don't have the best memory, we've never taken any kind of vote on paying for that, helping to pay for that. We've never been on an agenda. So I want the public to know, and particularly those that are real involved with Parks and Rec and the whole issue of that Dectron. I'm not even real familiar with what the problem is. I mean, I've heard that there's issues with it. I know Parks and Rec have been talking about it. But just so the public knows, we haven't, quote, put our foot down about anything when it comes to College Park Gym, at least nothing that I can recall ever having on an agenda. So again, that was an inaccurate off-the-cuff comment that was made, but that was made on the record and to the public. So I wanted to point that out first. And secondly, I wanted to point out, we're talking about a lot about planning and zoning, just real quickly. One of the things that a lot of communities are taking up, including the city of Lexington, is several things to try to promote housing development and the growth of housing. And one of the things that they are taking up, and other communities are too, are looking at the planning and zoning ordinances with respect to single-family homes and allowing potentially some multifamily development in some single-family zoned areas as a way to increase the housing stock. It is a really major, and I'd like to talk to Mr. Jeffries about it more at length at some point, but I just want to encourage us as a community to start looking at that. You know, there's a pretty prominent member of this community that made the comment to me a few years ago that we got a lot of zoning in this community, but not a lot of planning. And I think that's been one of the unfortunate hallmarks. We try planning sometimes, and then there's some things that change, but housing is really becoming a crisis. I've talked about it in here off and on for the last 5 years, and the problem always seems to be getting worse, and the cost of housing. So I just wanted to mention that, Judge, as something that as a county and maybe with the city, we need to start looking at with our zoning ordinances. But that's all I have, Judge. Thank you.
Magistrate Bland?
Yeah, I had emailed you all a copy of Madison County's 911 fee for you to review. If there's no appetite for that, then we'll move on and miss out on the revenue that we're not collecting for the landlines that we have lost in the last 30 years. But if you're willing to proceed with that, I'll be glad to help out in that regard. Secondly, splash pad, I did meet with Jeff Lewis the other day, and he assured me that they had gotten approval for the splash pad construction. I'd asked him to get me a copy of that approval letter. I haven't gotten that yet, but he assures me that Palmer Engineering has gotten approval from the entity in Frankfurt that's in charge of all public pool construction and assembly like that. So if in fact I get that approval letter, I will forward that to you all. While I was there, I did look at the gym floor, and it is just about every board on it is cupped, so I don't know how you can bounce a basketball on it, but there's certainly a moisture problem in the building. As far as an agenda item, on item 12, it says department head comments. I would appreciate it if it takes an action to those comments, that those be listed as another item, just if nothing else for public transparency. I don't mind receiving comment, but if it's going to require us to take an action, I think those comments go beyond the comment and require us to do something. And if we could get those items put on an agenda item so the public would know about it. I've been working with Fran, or actually Fran's been doing all the work on the fiscal court fund applications, and she's about got it ready. And we've put a deadline of August the 30th on that, and I don't know if the body needs to take an action to accept applications or not, but she'll have this ready as soon as I finish my review. We'll have it ready, and I would suggest we accept applications beginning August the 1st and ending August the 30th if y'all want to take an action on that. If it's not required, that's fine. We'll just do a press release and tell all the nonprofits about that. I think in the past we've taken an action, but again, I've been wrong in the past. So it's whatever the court's pleasure is. That's all my comments.
Judge, you passed me on magistrate comments, so I'd like to go ahead and...
No, I was kind of saving you for last.
Oh, saving me for last. I can do that. Thank you. You ready for me to do that?
I think these two.
I think they already passed. They already went through.
You already
Gone
go.
this way.
You go.
They already went through. Okay. The first thing that I've got 4 things. 3 are real short, and one's not lengthy. We had passed a to have the purchase of the fire department. This last time, we were going to get together and have the contract made up through Mr. Tierney, and was looked over by our county attorney. Everything looks good from both of them. We'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we get this signed today so we can move forward on that. I sent out one of these to all the magistrates last night. When I received it, it was requested by the county attorney to be put on the agenda today. For whatever reason, it didn't get on there. Judge Yates recommended I bring it up in magistrates' comments. So we're trying to be transparent. It didn't mean to be behind the scene or anything like that, so I want to clarify that. But it is mostly just a housekeeping thing of getting this signed, so I'd like to make a motion that we get this signed today.
Motion to authorize the judge executive to sign it today.
Correct, and Mr. Tierney.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I have a comment, I guess it's a comment, I'm not really sure, which is a bit unusual for a purchase agreement, and that has to do with the fire suppression system. Apparently, and again, I'm not a fire suppression expert, certainly not an expert in industrial buildings, but it appears as though that we're having a shared fire suppression system in this property and the building that it's adjoined to. I don't know if that's a code violation or it's a problem or whatever, but it seems to me like that may be something that, again, it's a bit unusual, as is having this building attached to the building adjacent to it. I mean, typically, you got a property line, you got separation, and I'm sure they were done in order to either comply with the code or something like that, but that's a bit concerning to me, and I'm still of the opinion this is the wrong location for a fire station, so I'm going to vote no.
Just, if it helps. Horizontal property law in Kentucky found that KRS Chapter 381 talks about shared elements, and in particular for commercial and industrial buildings. So, and it lays out the pro rata responsibilities for maintenance. Now, I'm certain that's been taken into consideration, although it may not be reflected in the agreement.
Thank you, appreciate that.
I'm still back, I guess, just for my clarification. I had similar concerns about that sprinkler system. So I guess, are we buying a complete building and an adjacent lot to that? What are we buying?
You're buying that one parcel number, I forget it was
One parcel,
13, what it was called, 13,
parcel, one building.
Okay.
16D.
And
16D.
just so I'm clear, so, and we never did get an appraisal on the building, on the property, right? No appraisal. And I'm assuming that was Magistrate Miller, you negotiated the contract? Who negotiated?
I negotiated nothing. It was on the original lease that you signed when they were option to buy at 888. We're just taking our option on that lease that you signed.
Okay.
The lease was prepared by the seller and presented to us, and then the county attorney reviewed it. And within that lease was the option to purchase it. We didn't negotiate that, prepare it.
Nope.
That was presented to us by the
And the
current
court
owner.
accepted it.
Yeah.
At that,
Court
we did.
accepted it, you signed it, and we're just
It was
moving on
unanimous.
that option.
The court unanimously accepted that.
Correct.
Yeah, wasn't that at the suggestion of you, Judge? Weren't you the one that came up with that?
With what?
Did you not come up with the property? I thought you were the original
No.
one that spoke up.
No.
Okay.
I will make one more comment, just an observation, that once we purchase this building, we then become the owner, and we're responsible for maintenance, operation, utilities, and a whole myriad of unbudgeted items. And I would think, we had trouble finding $10,000 here a while ago for an unbudgeted item. I wonder where these expenses are going to come from. I don't think we can transfer funds from other departments and other agencies to pay for these expenses, so I would hope that these costs would be budgeted through the fire department's future expenses, and I don't know that they were in the 2025 budget. So,
The CAECO insurance is somewhere in the neighborhood of $25,000, and then we'll have to put on top of that That's for the building, so, but anyway, I agree with Magistrate Blanton. I just think that we could have located the fire station in a better location. So with that, I'm gonna vote no on it too. So, is there any further discussion? That's all the magistrate comments, so the motion on the floor is the purchase of the fire station, or is to have the judge executive sign the contract to purchase the fire station. And how much is because the original, we're going to buy this for $888,000 plus the $22,000 for some shelving and whatever.
Racks.
Racks, okay. So the total purchase price is going to be $910,000. So that's the motion before you. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any any opposed?
No.
And I'll vote no. So the motion passes 5-2.
The next magistrate comment that I have is for Magistrate Blanton, that he had a question, and I had looked up, talked to a bunch of magistrates this weekend in one of our meetings, and they moved the 911 to their water bill or their water meter. That's the way that a majority of the people did it, and I asked them about, is that a change in taxes, and they didn't appear that it was. So we can look into that a little farther, but that's another option for that.
Now, again, you've got several ways of doing it. I'm just
bringing you
what Madison County did.
Sure.
That's the most recent one that
Sure.
has altered the way they collect those fees.
I'm just bringing you what they had said, because I thought it would be good to
And
look at.
typically, I don't know, but it seems like there's a whole lot of problems people have with WMU.
Yeah.
I know Kyle's doing his best up there, but,
Sure.
I'm just, my bottom thought is, we're missing a whole lot of money.
Sure.
And every meeting, we talk about needing a whole lot of money.
Sure.
So we need to do something so that we're not missing the boat, because
I agree.
landlines have disappeared and they're going away every day.
Absolutely.
And in 10 years, we've lost over half of what we had been collecting.
Absolutely.
So we need to do something.
Yeah, I just think we should look into that water
And
meter.
it's not a new tax, it's just a different way of collecting it.
Sure, sure.
So I would hope you all would approve it, something.
The other one is a comment that was made last time, that your concern was the response time for the fire department getting there. From 2023 to 2024, when we moved from the original fire station number 2 on Fulton Road to the bypass, is 14 seconds. That's dispatch time. That's not fire department's opinion. That's dispatch time. 14 seconds is the difference, both still under the 10-minute time. And then the last thing I want to just bring up an update. Frank Doyle mentioned this to me before he left, that at 9:09 a.m., the gentleman from Train that was supposed to be there that didn't show up the other day was on his way to the fire department, or the jail, to get things going. That's all I have.
Okay, that completes the magistrate comments. There is no closed session. The next meeting will be July the 25th at 5:30. Next item is adjournment.
Motion adjourned.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Please.
Can you wait 1 second?
Yeah, I can't.
Well, and then I saw he was going to do it.